Excuse me. We have a little bit of issue with signals. I'm trying to get this together before we get started. Tadama Shapache, thank you for being on with us. We appreciate you. I'm being honest, I am a little tired. But we here. I'm gonna go grab something to drink real quick. And actually I return. So, thank you for being on with us. I apologize about the background. Everything is scattered all over the place by this point. We actually had movie night in here last night, so we had to do a whole bunch of different things and move a whole bunch of things around so that they could watch the movie, and it's still set up because they only got to watch half their movie last night, so we're gonna have to let them watch the other half today. But we got at least half the sanctuary is set up. It's a little compressed, but we're getting there. But if you don't mind, just allow me to get some water, and then I shall be right back in front of you. Thank you for being on with us. Prayerfully, all is well with you all in Nine House and Nine Family. And prayerfully, you're ready for a word. So we're going to get started in just a little bit. On this platform over there, they try to make sure we're not even on. Praise God that we're going to get this together. Let's see what they're... I might have to restart this platform over here. They're trying their best to make sure we don't come on. Right, we're going to get started in just a little bit. I'm going to go grab something to drink. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for being on with us.
I learned my lesson in middle school. I was a scrapper. My mama, she said, you ain't got to fight for me. I can fight for myself. Because once you say something about your mama, it's on. You know? So when she said alcohol went on, I was like, wait a minute. You have to fight your dad. I don't got to fight your dad. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. We're going to get started. Thank you for your patience. Thanks for letting me get something to drink. Those who are on, we appreciate you. Those who are coming on, we appreciate you. I apologize. You just seeing this doesn't mean much to many, but we thank you all for being on with us. We circling around one more day for Feast of Tabernacles, so we're excited about what the Father's doing. Shabbat Shalom to all. Let's go ahead and get started. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Amen. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi. Ça va? Ni hao, namaste. Osayana Kitabuya, Ohio. I see you. Manut, Wagwan, Kamsa, Kamsamida, Aloha, Ciao, Onson, Habarigani, Akwaba, Badase, Etese, Jambu, Mimini Kofi, Nina Faraku Katana Nueve, Boker Tov, Boker Tav, greetings, grand rising, salutations, all that great stuff. Hopefully you've been enjoying your week, your holy days. You've seen a lot of persons, SOC and non-SOC, out and about, not just physically, but also virtually, doing their thing. And we're excited that the word of Yah is flowing and that his people are coming together as they are supposed to. Even Solomon was blowing the shofar, the best he's ever blown in action. And it was so powerful, so great that persons were coming from all around. We were in here just playing with instruments and stuff and doing things and the bugle and all that. And he pulled out the shofar and everybody was trying their best to blow through it and get some kind of traction. And some got a little, some didn't. And then he went on and it was so great. It started getting higher pitch and higher pitch and higher pitch. And persons from all around these sites came together, which is amazing because that's basically what it is. You know, persons came up here talking about, man, I came immediately. I heard the sound. I didn't know what was going on. Somebody made a joke talking about, I didn't know. You know, was it the so-called, was it the rapture or everything? You know, but everybody came running from all places, and we praise God. This has been a great experience in so many different levels. But blessings to everybody. I'm Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being the voice of the voices and speaking the unspoken. We appreciate you as always. That means, by the way, as far as denotation is concerned, because I know persons have different things with different words, we are saying when we appreciate you, not appreciate, but appreciate you, we're saying that we see the value in you and we're excited to see it grow and materialize and you become what you're supposed to be in the body of Yahashua, in the body of Christ. Amen? All right. So, we're thankful and grateful unto you. We are going to go ahead and get into today's word. Today, this will be the only thing for today, virtually. Physically, they may or may not do some trips and make some stuff together around, but we're going to pretty much kind of today start focusing on making sure stuff is together, as clean as possible, and things of that nature. Because come tomorrow we'll be checking out. So tomorrow we will have a live session. It will be actually somewhat brief in the rising. I will do one for the evening as well, because technically, even though we're checking out of here tomorrow in the afternoon, technically the last day of this actually starts tomorrow in the evening. So we'll do one more evening one on Monday evening as well. Maybe do something on Tuesday. Not sure, because Wednesday, Thursday is usually when my days off start. But this time when my days off start, I'm gonna be gone at least a week where you won't see me, at least for live sessions. And maybe if I can get if we have enough persons in replacement, I might be taking a couple weeks off. So this is exciting and bittersweet. It's always a little sad when I walk away for a little bit like that, but also to my body, you probably can even see it and hear it in my voice. I was saying the other day, sounds like I've been gargling stones, limestones and stuff like that. So it's when it gets to this point, even when we were doing the baptism yesterday, I couldn't really sing. I couldn't really do much of anything. And I, talk all the time anyways. I can't do much of that anymore, but it's getting to a place where I know it's time to take a break for a little bit when my voice is like sounding like what it's sounding like. It's time to take a little break. So y'all pray for us. You pray for me as we go through this word today. I hope that all is well. Once again, Shabbat Shalom to everybody. We appreciate you. We're going to go ahead and get into the word for today. So if you're able to rise to your feet in reverence of Yahweh's word, or however you're able to reverence the word, we thank you for doing so in advance. And we appreciate you once again. We're thankful and grateful. And it is our honor, our pleasure, and our privilege to be in front of you one more again. To the moderators, minister yourself, SOC, Lottie Dyer, everybody, agree with us, disagree with us. Even if you're on your way to church, or you're following the way, or non-believer, whatever it is, we are thankful for you guys spending some time with us on this rising. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Praise God. So if you're able to stand to your feet, once again, in reverence of Yahweh's word, we thank you all. How you doing, Sister Beck, Brother Keith, Brother Aaron, Money Green? All right, TH was already taken off. Thank you, moderators. And Andrew's already taken off. Thank you, moderators. Sister Deborah, how you doing, Auntie Marion? Brother Bradley. I'm sorry, excuse me. That wasn't Bradley. That person got taken off. right? Am I a Christian? Of course, I am not a Christian. Right? No, I am not a Christian. All right, I guess the question is, are you willing to find out what we actually do and who we are? How you doing? I think I said, well, maybe not. How you doing, Auntie Marion? How you doing, Brother Alton? Leonard, and thank y'all for the love. How you doing, Anthony Garcia, Brother Dwayne, Keith? Thanks for being part of the community. If you guys don't mind too, if you're able to share the live with persons, let them know that we're on. We're having a weird, interesting thing happen today with views or the lack thereof. But it's all right. It's all gravy. We came to preach and teach to who we came to preach and teach to. The algorithm might have been like, hey, you guys have been getting too much play lately. You got to shut it down. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We'll say our Bible pledge. You can put your right hand on your Bible or your device in the air and just repeat after me. This is my Bible. This is my sword. And this will I trust. For Yahshua is Lord. No sword of God shall ever be heard. For this is my Bible. And this is Yah's word. Acham Yechavach. Aman. His name is authority. Let it be done unto us. You may be seated or go back to what you're doing in the presence of the Most High. Today, we're going to focus on basically not to hear the world or not to listen to the world, right? I might be saying off a little bit on how I've written it out on certain platforms, but that's basically what we're talking about today, is to not be in the world, right? To not listen to the world, to not listen to the word of the world, right? Because we're supposed to be even talking about the word all week. Right? How you doing, Luke? Thanks for being part of the community. How you doing, Minister Morel? Hopefully you're doing well. How you doing, Anthony? And thank you all for sharing and all that. Like, share, subscribe, hit the notification tab, donations. By the way, it is Sunday, so if you do the 5 to 10 program, we thank you for all those things, right? But we don't want to be like the world. We don't want to be of the world. We don't want to give in to what worldly desires are. We want to separate in our flesh. We want to separate in our hearts. We want to separate in our minds. We want to prepare ourselves for the barak, or the blessing of the Most High Yah. And in this, we are not to not only be in the world, right? We're commanded to be in the world, but we are commanded to never be of it. How you doing? Straightforward. Thanks for being part of the community. We're commanded to be in the world, but we are never supposed to be what? Of the world. We're commanded to be what? In the world, but we're not supposed to be of it. I think I just said, if not, how you doing, Brother Rodney? Straightforward, thanks for being part of the community. I think I said that. So, in being in the world, but not of it, excuse me. So, in being in the world, but never of it, we have a mandate. How you doing, Jay? And we have to make sure, therefore, that we are not of the world. It also means we do not hear the way the world hears. And that means that we have to unhear some things that we've heard, right? We do not learn what the world learns, right? The word world, by the way, simply is referring to a system, right? I know we had somebody on, what was it, yesterday, or maybe the day before, probably the day before, because Thursday and Friday were Q&A, where somebody, Friday, where somebody brought up that they didn't like what I said about the word world. But when you research the word world is talking about a system. And Yah loves his system. He gave his only begotten son, and whosoever believes in his system. So we're not trying to be part of this world, if you will, but we're trying to be part of Yahweh's world. Or we're not trying to be part of the system or the beast or the things that are used to govern, right? And therefore has caused a government. We are trying to ensure that you and I are getting to a place where we are actually living righteously. Right, to a point to where we're not governed by anything of this wicked system, but our only governance should come through the kingdom, and therefore we become government. If you don't know what I mean by that, M-E-N-T, the suffix mint, M-E-N-T, put on any type of word that you're using in Anglo-ish, if you will, in English, is saying that we are taking something and making it a noun. We're making it the result of something. So governance, or govern, right, is actually an action. It's a verb, right? But if it becomes government, it means that is the result of the action. So how we are governed creates a government, right? So a lot of us think our government Yeah, are the persons, right? A lot of persons think that the government, right, the noun, is there for governing us, but really what happens is the way that those persons who are put in position. So the governor, right, governs you, and the way they govern you creates government. I'm going to say that a couple more times, right? How you doing, Davey Lee? And thank y'all for the love. All right, how you doing, George Miller? Thank y'all for the love. So really, the way it works is somebody govern, or so you have governor. The governor does the verb, right? So the governor is a noun, is the person who does an action. Verb governs, right? And when they govern, that action causes something to come into place called government. How you doing, Sister Deborah? Thank y'all for the love again. So govern, somebody's a governor. They govern you, and then you get something called government, right? That's the way that works. And government has somebody get to a place again where you have to start looking for what? Governors of the government. So in order for them to be governors of the government, they have to govern. That they don't have certain, their actions create government. This is why you guys vote for your presidents and all that stuff, and then every 4 years you vote again, right? And you don't like the way that this one did, or you like the way this one did enough. Well, they are a governor, they governed, and then they cause a government. That government now has to have somebody over it, so you put somebody else in place. That's how that works. Hopefully that makes sense, right? Right. So in the things that we're doing, in the things that we're talking about, once again, you can listen long enough to be able to find out if you like. If not, it's okay, right? But I'm going to be obedient to the task that I have at hand. So when we talk about the governance, right, we have to realize that the government that you guys are seeing and the way people are governing you and the governors of you are worldly. Not just only, by the way, in your kingdoms, in your monarchies, in your some of you in your parliaments, right, in your Congress, right, but it's also in your places of worship, because a lot of places of worship try to be obedient to the worldly government or the worldly governance or even the worldly governors rather than the governor who we know to be the Most High Yahweh Elohim. Right. So a lot of the things that you're getting are not biblical. They're not Tedach. They're not Torah. They're not lawful. They're not scripture. They're not whatever you say that you are. If you go to a lot of so-called Muslim countries, okay, if you look at how the leaders act, they do certain things for sure, but there's a lot of stuff that they're not obedient to, and a lot of stuff they manipulate. If you go to so-called Christian nations, you'll find out that they're not obedient either. If you go to so-called romantic countries, you'll find out that as much as they say that they're romantic and this and that or whatever in values, they also will make sure that they shift things to make sure that the ones who are in charge, can get the stuff out of it that they want, even if it be at the unfortunate demise of their own people who they're supposed to be leading. Right? So a lot of us are governed by the world, and we want to talk today about not being governed by the world, not falling for the word of the world, not listening to the stuff, and we're going to have to unhear some things and unlearn some things. And I'm led today by the Hakodash to ensure that you might learn a few things differently and maybe see where it is that your value system might be and try to change some of those things. How you doing, Sister Kimberly? How you doing, Sister Jennifer? How you doing, Brother Cole? If I miss anybody on either platform, thank you so much for being on with us. Is it Marcus Major Surf, is it? Thank you for being on with us. How you doing, Sister Allison? I guess Six Dog said something crazy. Right? Sabian's Egypt. Oh, okay. Free Dr. Malachi's New York. Okay. And how you yep, and happy Feast of Tabernacles, Sukkot. Some of you say Sukkot. If you're in your Sukkahs or your Sukkahs, prayerfully, it's really Sukkot, or it's Sukkah, not Sukkots, right? But anyways, a lot of dialects are mixed together. So whichever way you say it, may Yah bless you during these Feast of Tabernacles. We have one more day of it. Praise Yah. Technically, two more, depending on how you look at it. If you're looking at the moon or whatever, but we're pretty much coming down at the end of this, and we're thankful and grateful for everything that the Most High Yahweh is doing. Those testimonies during prayer service today were amazing, and we're excited about what Yah's doing. Thank you, by the way, to Elder Anais for leading the prayer service, and everybody for doing what they do, praying for Brother Richard, Sister Ucelis, Brother Matea, and Sister Adalea, that they make it home safely. They took off in the middle of the night last night. So prayerfully they should be getting home around sometime soon, and or they might be home, might have just gotten home. They might be asleep. So if if you see this recording later, brother, or, hopefully you're getting some sleep. And to Sister Shirley and the boys, Koba and Nolan. Hopefully you're in time for your plane ride, and you guys will be able to make it safely back to your location as well. Praise y'all. Yep, one more sunrise, one more sunset. Amen. So, all right, India in the house. Hello, how you doing? This is hilarious? Okay, I guess me telling persons I hope that they're safe is hilarious. It's hilarious. But, welcome on if that's your way of saying hello. And that's your humanity that you have for others. How you doing, Sister Beverly, or your lack thereof? How you doing, Minister Raj? Come on in, family. We love you. Thank you for being on. We appreciate you. How you doing, Bobby? Thank you for the compliment. So today, once again, we're focusing on not being so into the words of the world and believing everything that they have, and it's misshaping our thought process so much that we really usually have a hard time hearing word, including in the pulpits that are in your assemblies, or the pulpits that are in your Congress, or the pulpits that say the White House, United States government, Congress, etc., whatever your pulpit says on it, right? Your pulpit says your church name, your pulpit has your your NOI stuff on it. Your pulpit has your Sunni or Shiite stuff on it. Your pulpit has your Buddhist stuff on whatever it is. These pulpits are very worldly, right? How you doing, Tina Turner? Right? These pulpits are very worldly, and so we want to come out of this wicked stuff that's been put in our head for so many years and so long. How you doing, Sister Barbara? That we're off track now, right? We don't even know how to get things together. So, for example, right, these are things that you who have been on with us a long time have heard me say. We'll start in some of the usual places, but we'll kind of do this for everybody to get foundational information. You can kind of see what the tenor of today's conversation is going to be, in essence, right? So, when we all went to school, well, I can't say all of us. For those who went to school, many of you even who were homeschooled, whether you were in the West or not, if you learned about American presidents, many of you are under the impression that, and I gotta, to be honest, I might be off on this. Is Trump? Sorry, thank you. Is Trump number 40? He's 47 now.
Yeah,
Right?
he was 45.
He's 45 and 47. Yeah. So many of you are under the impression that there's been, even though Trump is technically, two of them, but many of you are under the impression that there's been 47 presidents, right? And I know, once again, SOC, you probably get tired of me using the same example, but just for today, so we can start and everybody's in the same place foundationally, because today we're talking about these not believing the word of the world, right? We've been talking about the word all week. So we want to make sure that we're talking about the word and what word we should believe and why we should not believe the word of the world, right? Can the word of the world be believed? And by the end of this also, too, we should have a conversation. Can the word of the Most High be believed? Is there evidence to either, right? If we're being apologetically sound, right? If you don't know what that means, if we're able to make sure that we can defend that which we believe or put an argument together, right, based off of contextual facts that reveal truth, then if we're going to have this conversation, then you and I should make sure we have a conversation about not only what we like or don't like to hear, but also can we prove it? So we're going to do that today, right? That is what that's what the calling is for today, right? I'm doing well. How you doing? I apologize. I got to learn how to pronounce the first name. I think the last name is Patil. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. Welcome. Right, so 47 terms, right? So we'll say that people believe that 47 terms. True that, right? Even though technically it's not 47 terms either, right? Because, right, it's not, right? Because there's been 47. Hold on, I have to double count it. You might have something there. I have to look at that. We'll just leave that to the side because George Washington did twice, right? Thomas Jefferson did twice. Not sure about Jackson. I feel like he might have done twice. Van Buren, I think, only did once. John Quincy Adams, I think, did once. John Adams, I think, did once. But I had to look at that. Right? Oh, hey, how you back?
Didn't mean to interrupt. We got some stuff for you. We're going to head out a little earlier.
Oh.
And just dip out early.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, brother.
But next time, we'd love to come congregate with you.
Yeah, for sure. Tell what be safe. Shalom too as well.
For sure.
Y'all be safe, man. Love you. Keep doing what you're doing.
Brother.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You as well.
All right. Yeah. That's Brother Jacob from Jacob's Regeneration. If y'all know who that is on TikTok or doing great things, doing great work. proud of him. I was telling him the other day from when we met and from where he is now. Yeah, it's brought him a mighty long way. And we're thankful to see people healing and going and doing what they need to do. Alrighty. So, and thank you for the love, brother. He's left a bunch of gifts and stuff for person. So before y'all leave, oh no, some of them left without it. Well, I think Sister Shirley and them, we might have to send it to him via mail. But we have some, yeah, he's brought some minerals and some different things, different salts, different things for magnesium intake, different things that you can take if you drink, if you do drink milk and do dairy and stuff like that. For some of you are vegan, you can't. But for those of you, he has some different milk that you actually should take rather than the one that you're taking and stuff. So he has a lot of great information. If nothing else, check out his books. He brought a bunch of books for us just to be able to have. So we're excited about that. But yeah, so there's been a bunch of persons who have been in twice, I guess, as far as presidents, getting back to that. But mainly as far as those who've been in, so however many presidents we've had, I might have to check that out. I could be off on it. There's 47 terms. I thought there were 46 men or something, and for some reason we were doing this weird thing with Trump. So I thought he was 47 because everybody's trying to argue about him. But I could be wrong about that. I had to look into that. So let's just say, in all these things that you've learned about the presidents, right? Including right now, I could be learning something on the spot. But all the things we learned about the presidents, we had one. We believe that George Washington is the first president, right? And how you doing, Sister Tabitha? Right? Yeah, he comes on from TikTok from time to time. He's actually on as Jacob's Regeneration. If you look for him on TikTok, he's a great following. He's a great guy. He'll get you started on a lot of great things. We were actually chopping it up for a while yesterday. And he was supposed to be here. He wasn't able to make it. Had some car issues and some work issues and stuff that he was able to get here. Praise Yah, at least to join us for a little bit, but and see the baptism and stuff as well. But yeah. So back to what we were talking about. I'm gonna get focused. I'm sorry. I apologize. So back to what we were talking about. Where were we at? Yeah. So a lot of persons believe that George Washington is the first president. How you doing, Empress? But George Washington himself admits to having two presidents that were his favorite. And he wrote that, by the way, confessed it while he was not the president. And while he had not been the president yet, meaning that how can he be the first president if there were presidents before him? Now, some persons then try to say, well, that was Continental Congress, but that's still part of the so-called United States, right? Now, others can easily, clearly say, if somebody says, well, what about him being the first president, period? But there's other countries that had other presidents, even before there was a president of the United States, right? And a lot of persons don't realize even how crazy it was that he became president. So in our mind, we have all this stuff. I heard even, and no offense, I get where our brother was coming from, but there was a brother who was former military. I guess he either was a general or got close to general. Y'all know they had that weird, wild thing with Donald Trump, and they called all the generals and the heavy enlisted and all that recently, and they had the so-called, he calls himself the Secretary of War, and all this stuff, and they went in front of everybody and they had that weird moment where nobody clapped, nobody did anything. They were obedient as far as what we're supposed to do, as far as for those of us that are former service members. They did well, but they also did well in their silence, right? And they showed in their silence that we're not really with you, and that's not really how the Constitution works, right? But in all these different things, there was a brother who had been retired, and a lot of persons don't know that, especially when you get to general, admiral, by that time they actually like mentor each other. So one admiral who mentors another admiral, you literally have people who go all the way back, like lineage wise, to mentoring and having friendships. So like they talk to each other going all the way back to when you would say like a George Washington first general, stuff like that. But this brother was talking, and he was spitting game, but then he said something that was a little interesting. He goes, yeah, for the time that George Washington first turned in his sword, this and that or whatever, and he's had this and all of us generals, and he was, and when I say brother, we're all brothers, but I mean, he was a brothers, and he was black, and I was like, George Washington back then wouldn't have allowed you to even fight. What are you talking about, George Washington, the sword? But that's the word that he lives by, right? And we were trained like that everybody's this, and it's just one, and all you see is green, right? And you put on, back then, now the Navy, they got blue camis too, but, like you put on your camis, and you go outside, and you're like, okay, or you put on your dungarees, if you know about those too, but you put on your camis, and you're like, okay, we're straight, and this and that, and all we see is green, and then you get in long enough, and you realize, oh, that's not all they see. You know, you're a young guy, you're in there. I joined when I was 17, finished my schooling and everything when I was 18. You know, was in there and even was a married man by 19, trying to do everything the way to do in the Navy, and you find out very quickly, oh, it's not friendly like they say is. And you have to have old head, you know, forgive me, you know, we would have called them old heads. I don't mean no disrespect to nobody, but our old heads are the cats that was above us, right? Our elders, if you will, in there, our superiors, they had to like let you know sometimes, like, hey, no, I know they say that everybody can do that, but we can't do that. I know that they say that everybody gets along, and and I try to stay away from it because, to be honest, I was partially a token back then, but also too, I was, I had the mindset, oh, they always talking about race. There's always racism. There's always, and I was raised learning about it, but I had made up my mind. No, they always talking about I'm joining the Navy. We're all in the same thing. The military is the same. There's no, I even heard people, and when I started coming on TikTok and I was doing the activism thing, mainly or only at one point, and I would hear guys on there, well, Kofi, you're wrong. You know you're wrong, because when we were in, all we would see was green, and I was like, no, that's not what I saw. Maybe that's all that you saw, because you're in a position to where that's what you can see in the world. In that world, you don't know what it's based upon, and so yeah, when you come in, and matter of fact, maybe that's what you want or desire, right? Right? That's what we need, to be honest. If you still consider yourself part of the United States, all that, you need that to be the function of it, right? But we know, plain as day, there's women that still get off and are worded and stuff like that, and they get thrown about during times of war, or even just here in the United States, right? And we can't find them no more and stuff like that. Then we find their bodies, and nobody ends up getting in trouble for it and all that stuff, right? And we see, especially with Latino women, especially with black women, so-called black women, so-called Latino women, and all that stuff, and nobody says anything, but everybody says the same. And I'm like, no, bro. So going back to George Washington, I was like, not only did we lie about George Washington being the first president, we lie about him being some kind of person who was great. We lie about him when we say, oh yeah, he didn't know what to do with racism. No, he said he married his wife Martha because she had 75% of the slaves they would own. He said that's one of the reasons. I mean, I guess he said he loved her in there too, but that's a weird thing to list, isn't it? That I married my wife because she got way more slaves than me, and if I marry her, then I'll get more slaves. Right? But the lie that's told about George Washington is what? Is that he was great, and he never told a lie. His father asked him, "Did you chop down the cherry tree, son?" And he said, "Father, I cannot tell a lie. I in fact did." And everybody says he was pious and he was great. He was so great that he didn't know how to eat food. What you mean, Pastor Kobe? He was so great, that's why he had dentures. All those pictures where his mouth is always closed. He never smiled. That wasn't because, we forget. I don't want to go back into the nasty live session we did a couple weeks ago, that evening where we were talking about, but like those wigs and everything, that was nasty. They had all types of bugs and mice and fleas. That's why they had dogs. You know how they had lap dogs? They had lap dogs because rich persons had lap dogs because they needed to catch on them fleas. And they had dogs that they would parade around palaces and stuff because there would be so many fleas jumping around that people would hope. Especially, I didn't even know. I told you I'm not gonna go into the depths because some of you always said I had y'all gagging, so I'm not gonna have you gagging. I promise. I won't go all the way into it for those that were part of that that live that we did that evening, right? But you remember we were even talking about how I never knew until I researched for that live that there's a such thing as body lice. I knew there was lice for your hair. I had never heard, oh, there's different types of lices. I guess I had heard, forgive me, there's lices or whatever down there, I guess. But I never heard of body lice, where there's lice that just only looks for your skin. There would be so much lice around. That's why they had dogs, because they would have the dogs next to them, and they would make sure the dogs always had the poofy fur. They bred them for that specifically because the rich were getting so much lice on them that they wanted the dogs to get it first, so at least it would give them a reprieve. Right? George Washington, he didn't know how to eat, going back to him, because George Washington, he had lost his teeth because all he ate was candy. He thought it was healthy to only eat what you like, and he ate candy all day, so his teeth fell out, I think, completely by the time he was 30. No condition, no medical condition, no dental, whatever. He literally just had his teeth fall out, right? This is the man, though, that we lift up and we say, oh, yeah, he's a paragon of virtue, this and that, or whatever. Matter of fact, remember I talked about the slaves and the teeth? The reason why I'm talking about those things, by the way, is because before he went to the place where they just say, oh, yeah, he had ivory dentures, which is true eventually. I think like his fifth set of dentures were ivory dentures. But first things first, he actually would take the teeth out of the mouth of his slaves. And before somebody who knows about this, who tries their best to defend this, say something stupid and crazy, like, forgive me for saying it, but I believe it's stupid and crazy to use this as an argument, where you'll say, well, he paid them for their teeth. He paid them, first of all, like a penny, or not even that. I think they found out this a lie. I think, those wood coins that they give, and they were using during, not slavery, but right after slavery, when they sharecroppers, they would give the sharecroppers wood coins, and they would say this is like money, and then you work it off, and then you'll be able to go. And then they never paid them money, so therefore, it's right, stuff like that, where they made sure we were that much into slavery, where we trusted the wood coin above the gold that we were owed, or the dollars that we were owed and stuff. Well, he would either give them something like that, or at the most, he gave them whatever the lowest was that they could give, which at that time would have been a penny for your tooth. Y'all think that that's like acceptable? Like, I'm gonna rip your tooth out your mouth. Some of you are so brainwashed, or as somebody would say, what was it, the smooth brain syndrome. Some of us chattel slaves were so jacked up that we thought that it was, yeah, master needs a teeth, I'll give him one of my teeth. Let him snatch it out your head, and then maybe he'll give you a penny, and you celebrate master because he didn't have to give you anything. Right? But this is the George Washington we lift up. This is the same George Washington that we lift up so much that we forget how much percentage. This is the craziest vote ever. You ready for this? How much percentage? You know how Trump has to get a certain amount of votes and all that stuff. What were the amounts of votes? It was, let's say somebody wins 70% to 30%. Somebody wins, what was it? Reagan the second time, didn't he win something crazy like 93% or 93% to almost 7% or something like that, right? What do you think the percentage of vote was for, and that was electoral college, so that's different. But what do you think the percentage of vote for was George Washington to win? And how you doing, Glenda? Thanks for being on. What do you think the percentage of the vote was for George Washington to win? You said I was trained like that. I was trained wrong. How did I say I was trained? If you're talking about I was trained, I said that when I came in, I wanted to believe. I didn't say anything about being trained. You know nothing about training. That being said, though, I said that I was brought in believing that everybody was the same. And when I saw that everybody wasn't treated the same, I had persons who were older than me, and were telling me, yeah, they're not going to treat you the same. And I didn't believe them. And I went gung-ho, and I even got a lot of ribbons and stuff, but I couldn't get any rank and stuff. And then I started having persons who would lie on me, but then when we were supposed to be in the foxhole together, we're supposed to have each other's back, right? So I learned from personal experience that it's BS when everybody says that everything's together. By the way, if you know about the United States military, which I'm not sure how much you do, maybe you served, and if so, thank you for your service, which if you believe in all the stuff you're talking about, that should have been the first thing out of your mouth, right? But let's just go ahead and do this. If you know about the service as much as you can, when did in the United States military? I'm gonna come back to the question about George Washington, but since this person wants to be on whatever, let me just ask you a question to let you meditate on something. You ready? When is it that the United States military as a whole stopped being segregated? Do you know? Because it wasn't 1900s, it wasn't 1940, it wasn't 1950, it wasn't 1960s, it wasn't 1970s. Wasn't the 1980s. Well, on paper, I'll give you that. It might have been the 1980s on paper. Do you know when? And do you know which service was the last one? I'm saying no to Muhammad because of what I'm wearing. I'm not a Christian. I'm not a Muslim, right? You get yourself together, right? All right, or else you're just gonna get kicked off. That one's just that's your troll is not even great enough for me to respond to. I'm gonna leave that alone. Yeah, you don't know. You're not responding. So let me help you. Basically, the United States Marine Corps is the last one to go ahead and desegregate. And even when they did, there was in the USMC, you have in the Navy, we have Master Chief Petty Officer of the Navy. You would have had in the U.S. Marine Corps, you had the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps. And the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps used to come through the gate as the Sergeant Marine Corps, as the top enlisted guy, and used to have to kick people out because so-called white persons would spit at his car as he was coming through the gate. And he was that when I first came in. I came in 2000. So if you want to talk about all this stuff or whatever, say I was trained wrong, you need to figure out, you need to talk to your buddies then, because obviously they were trained really wrong to train me to think if they'll spit on him, what would they do to little old E3 at the time, E4 me, right? I had to learn that very quickly. But anyways, going back to George Washington, see, persons don't know what they talk about it. They make statements and they don't research, or they think that we don't research and we're going to go ahead and fall for it. That's why you can't believe the word of the world. You can't believe liars. I'm just giving you an example. This is a quick one. See, just talking about George Washington and talking a little bit about military service, and everybody loses their mind. Why? Because you live so much on the lie, or your wealth is based, a lot of you, your wealth or riches or whatever money you make, your job even, is based off of lies. Right? A lot of you guys, that's what your stuff is based off. It's based off of lies. And how you doing, Rain Man? How you doing, Karen? But the vote for George Washington, right, was 100%. If anybody else in history, any country, had 100% vote, we would probably say they lied, right? We'd probably say there's something, some kind of dictatorship, right? We would say that for certain. Matter of fact, when you research it, you'll discover who was allowed to vote. When it says we the people of the United States, right? When you read that and you go, oh, that's so amazing. First of all, the word people means nation. So that's great. We the nation of the United States. Problem though, in the same place it says we the nation of the United States, it talks about the savage and it talks about talks about the savage and it talks about the bondman, which is the slave. So those persons are not considered to be human beings. They're not even considered to be people. Therefore, they're not considered to be part of the nation. So they can't vote, obviously, right? Okay. So then besides that, well, who can vote? Well, can women vote? No. Right? Women had to keep fighting and fighting and fighting. And even when you talk about Susan B. Anthony and others, she said, I'd rather give my right arm than to have a black man vote before me. Right? How you doing, Sister Carla? Yeah, the whole system, it has to be based off of a lie. Now, here's the great thing. I won't say the great thing. Here's the thing about a lie that you have to learn. The thing that you have to learn about a lie is that a lie is based off of some truth. But a half-truth is always a whole lie. At least unless it's something that hasn't been revealed to you yet by the Most High. But outside that, a half-truth is always a whole lie. So you've been told a bunch of partial truths. Susan B. Anthony, she marched for women's liberation. And she even had Harriet Tubman speak at one of her things. Sure, but did they tell you Susan B. Anthony didn't want anything, first of all, to do with Sojourner Truth? And that's why Sojourner Truth, even though her speech wasn't originally named in I, a Woman, but when you read it, even the speech that that is turned into, you'll see that she's basically saying, I don't get treated like you guys do. And she only gave a 5-minute speech because they didn't want her there. Then later on with Harriet Tubman by that point is popular, right? And Harriet Tubman doesn't sound, too schooled either, even though Harriet Tubman was a powerful speaker by all accounts. I never heard her, obviously, but, by all accounts and reading some of the transcripts of her speeches and stuff, so they said, okay, she's popular, she's not going to make us look bad, whatever, okay, cool, she can come through. But Susan B. Anthony didn't like us. She, once again, said, when she was asked about black men being able to vote, and keeping black men's vote, and stuff like that, and helping them to make sure, because they were messing with the black vote back then, right? She said, I'd rather give my right arm than help them. We've been lied to, right? We've been, bamboozled, led astray, run them up, right? We ain't land on Plymouth, all that, right? Somebody lied to us so long, and we believe the lies, and we profess the lies so often that now, we live the lie. I was saying this to somebody, I think it was brother Jacob yesterday, we were talking, and I was saying, man, all the stuff I know, like it's lies. I know, like the soda stuff. I think that's what I talk about, like my little soda addiction and everything. I was like, I know the soda stuff is bad. Boom, boom. I can tell you all the stuff that's in it. I can tell it to you better than, to a certain degree, some of the greatest experts out there. And yet, in my mind, I've lived the lie so long that I can't be without. Right? Now, that's not the truth. I'm going to get off it. I've been getting off it. I'm just saying, that's how I be. I've seen myself literally. No, I'm literally looking at the stuff, knowing what's in there, knowing what this stuff means. I'm turning the bottle around so I can read all the stuff that's in there, and still like, okay, I'll do it tomorrow. Because there's so much in me. The lie. Or, in that case, well, it's a lie that it's actual food. It's not. Somebody else was talking. I heard some of y'all talking about it the other day. I know this isn't even food, but I eat it. Right? We had a lot. It smells great. It smells like it's edible, but it's really not edible. But I'll eat it even though it's not edible. We've been lied to so much. That's why we have to get out of the world or out of the wicked system, or out of the beast, or out of a governance that's trying to get you and I. Think about this. Anybody that would govern you into a place of losing your life, you should stay away from. Any FDA that would say that we know that this will off you, but hey, our masters have said go ahead and give this to you, is not worth the salt. Any FDA that would go at the brother from Berkeley when he came out and told you guys that they're putting certain the stuff they're spraying on corn and other things was literally turning frog males into frog females. Anybody who gets mad at that brother for telling you the truth, that hey, literally they're putting stuff in there, whether you think they're purposefully, because let's say they're not purposefully trying to make brothers effeminate, right? But if they're purposefully putting stuff in there that we know statistics and studies show us are literally changing frog males not only into frog females, but is actually changing their organs on the inside, and is causing them to even want to breed with them their another male frog, right, which they never do in the wild. Yet at some point, and I know before somebody said, I'm talking about a specific frog, before somebody, who knows, you'll find the one exception, or in them, which by the way, they're not human beings either, but I'm talking about the male from female, right? That changes something from male to female, and yet it's on your food. Any FDA that would allow that is evil. How you doing, Brother Richard? Hopefully y'all made it back safe, or hopefully you're close to making it back safe, right? And if Adalea can hear me, if Mattia can hear me, if Ucelis can hear me, everybody, hopefully y'all are doing well, right? But any organization, anything that would govern you, any beast that would allow that to happen to you, we should call it out. See, we live in a lie so much. And then when we produce things to you, you know, even like Brother Jacob and some of the gifts that he left for us, and I'm going to disperse them to the people that are here. And if you were here and you didn't get any, let me know. This is, he's got a lot of sense stuff, and he got a lot of great books and this stuff. I mean, it's top notch. Elder Alma approved too. By the way, for those who like, Elder Alma does too. She likes these two. These are updates. He updated them since the last one he sent to me. So, right. But even something as simple as, for those of you who aren't doing the vegan thing or doing vegetarian stuff or whatever, if you can drink milk, right? Even something like this is like goat milk, for example. Do you know why Brother Jacob even started thinking about goat milk instead of regular milk? Not because somebody told him this and that, whatever. Because it's in the Bible. Did you know that? Like, the Bible actually talks quite a bit about using goat milk. Literally. It says quite a bit about it's something that's healthy. It even says that if you do stuff righteous in the way that we operate, it says that a goat, if you use it business-wise, will even pay for the rest of your land. Over and over and over again. So we're actually, as farmers, we would have known some of these things, right? We've lost our culture, we've lost our way, right? And if you are somebody that has a child, and for whatever reason, we would always prefer and preach and teach that you should breastfeed. That being said, for some reason, if you can't breastfeed, if the baby can't latch on, if you can't produce milk, if something's going on and you get sick, whatever the case is, why would we use formula instead of making sure that we use something? And guess what? The Bible talks to it. I won't say that it says this exactly, but we know that science backed this up. It's better to give your baby goat's milk than it is to give them formula. It's better to give them goat's milk than it is to give them cow's milk. Being raised on cow's milk, you know what cow's milk does, by the way? See, this is why we had to come out the world. Thank you, Proverbs 27:27. There it is. He was saying that over and over again yesterday, Elder Tabor, over and over again. Right? 27, he go back 25 through 27 over and over again. And he was working that word. He was teaching me some things. Right? But a lot of persons don't recognize this, that even when it comes to the goat milk, right? And when it comes to these things or whatever, a lot of persons don't recognize and realize, let me go back to cow's milk, excuse me. The cow's milk, what does cow's milk do? See, every milk that you get does something. Right, it's designed for the offspring, or for us, for our babies, right? For our children, for the goats, for their kids. Remember, kids are baby goats, right? We have children. So the children, the kids, the calves, right? Whatever milk you're drinking, you have to think, oh, this is for a calf. So if there's a calf that's born, what is the calf when it's born, and what is the calf supposed to turn into? Yeah, and it can give mucus and all that stuff too, definitely, right? But what is the calf? And how you doing, one who whispers? What is a calf? What is a cow calf? How heavy is a cow calf when it's born? And how heavy is your child when they're born? You see? So we already got a huge discretion. Because a calf could be what, 200 pounds or something when it's born? Am I off on that? Somebody, if you want to look that up, it might be a whole lot less. I feel like I've heard of calves that are like 200 pounds when they're born, right? Their mothers are definitely way more than that, right? And what it's supposed to do, however big the calf is, right? However big the calf is, and you even got to be careful, unfortunately, with almond milk and stuff like that too, because you know almond milk, the way that they have to create it to get it to you, that basically you're not really drinking much of anything anyways. But at least it's something that you can, you know, it reminds you of milk. I guess that's kind of the main thing that they're doing with that too, right? But first things first, and shalom, Shabbat shalom to all. Shabbat shalom, Glenda, if I didn't say so already. If I didn't, please forgive me. But the milk of a cow is designed to take a baby calf and help turn it into what? An adult calf. So guess what a lot of persons deal with when we drink milk? A lot of our people, and a lot of persons all over the world, but a lot of our people, especially in sports, you probably heard a lot of stuff like enlarged heart. Guess why? Because you're drinking stuff that's making your body bigger than what it's supposed to be, and you can't handle it.
And I'm just thinking too, they have several stomachs to break that
And they have
milk down to digest
right. They have
it,
4
and
stomachs,
we don't.
right? That's why they eat grass. Like we can have grass, but we know we're not going to digest it. But we can have it, or at least like grind it, or even like suck on the grass to be able to get things out. But you can't digest grass. But the cow can. Why? Because it's got 4 stomachs, and it keeps bringing it up, and it chews the cud. Matter of fact, that's one of the things why it's lawful to eat cow, is because the cow eats, chews the cud, right? But eating the cow is different, right, than having the cheese. By the way, do you know, just to throw in here too, this is law. See, persons don't know, and this is stuff to help us with health. I had to stop this. I learned a long time ago. My wife and I, we were reading and going through some stuff and study, and she's been a stickler for this ever since. And at first, I was kind of like, because I didn't want to stop eating, so I was eating, so I was kind of like, I was trying to make it like, it's not that big a deal. It's the law, right? Where it says with the goat, you should never eat the kid with the mother. So in other words, if you're having goat's milk, you should, or even I don't know even what you call. I guess you call it. I don't know what you call the prepared baby goat, but you shouldn't have a baby goat version of it with the mother. But then she started saying, well, then we shouldn't be having like chicken with eggs. And I didn't want to hear that because my little breakfast sandwich sometimes is like chicken breast, grilled with the put the egg on top or whatever. No, especially when I was in the world for real, put some bacon on that joker, like that was my stuff. But even without the bacon, that was when I hit Chick-fil-A every once in a while. I know you're not supposed to, but every once in a while I hit Chick-fil-A. And I'd be like, you know what? I'm gonna get that's my little breakfast thing, because usually I can't get to Chick-fil-A. I don't eat before I do the live, so I don't do breakfast that often. So every once in a while I'd be like, oh, I'm going to Chick-fil-A and I'm getting the grilled chicken with the with the egg whites. That's my stuff right there. That was my thing. But she was like, no, if we can't do that with the goat, we probably shouldn't do it with the chicken.
No cheese.
Yeah, it's like, right? Or the cheese, or yeah. So then if we and if it's the milk, we shouldn't probably be doing the cheese. We shouldn't be doing we shouldn't be doing the cheese with the burger, right? And I started to do that even here. We were having a hamburger, and I forgot to tell everybody, so that's my fault, y'all. Now you know. I'm sorry. Excuse me. But I started eating it, and then like immediately got into it. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I don't eat the cheese with the burger. But that's law. But guess what? That's healthy. A lot of persons don't know that's healthier to not have the two together. Persons just think that this stuff is there just to get on your nerves. No, it's actually healthier not to put those two together. You can have eggs, yeah. You can have chicken, but when you put them together, something actually happens it's not supposed to, right? So when you look in your Bible, just if you do a quick, I don't have the verse on top of my head, but if you look it up, it's in there where you shouldn't put the mother and the child together when you eat. Now I was talking about the goat specifically for those who are like, hey, I still want to have blah blah, because I wanted to do that too. But my wife did bring up a great point. If you shouldn't do it with the goat, maybe we shouldn't do it with anything. So we tried our best to kind of stay away from that. But that being said, like once again, we believe the word of the world. Right, so we'll put the world over what the Bible says, or the Bible has told us things for a whole bunch of years, and persons are like, "Oh no, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense." And then finally, we get to a place where we're like, "Oh yeah, everybody trying to go back to nature. Well, the Bible told you how to eat in nature." Oh no, well that's the Bible, Or even nowadays, our people, we so warped. The white man wrote that and blah blah whatever. Okay, so let's just say, because even though the Bible is written by Israelites, and if you do some research, Israelites are Negroes. If you know what a Negro is, it doesn't mean the black person. The Negro became black over time, but Negroes used to be what we were called even in Europe and in West Africa before that, right? That being said, you go through all these things or whatever, and you hear all these persons say all this stuff. Okay, fine. So let's just say all this stuff. Let's just for the sake of argument, the Bible is written by a white person. It's not, but let's just for the sake of argument, right? Just for this point, at least, so-called white persons, because technically there's no such thing as a white person if you know what that means. But so-called white persons wrote the Bible. Okay, so if it's in your Bible, if it's in the Bible and it says you should not, thou shalt not murder, should we say, well, because a so-called white person wrote it, right, that we shouldn't listen to it? Right, of course, that's not how stuff works, right? But, we make all types of excuses to give into the word of the world, right? Instead of what Yah himself says. We ready to give the world everything we can, but we don't want to give Yah anything. Right? We ready to give the world everything, but we won't give Yah what's due to him. All the glory, all the majesty. We say all glory belong to you, but then his law says, and we say, oh, well,
Not all.
maybe not that. No, but all glory, all power, all dominion, it belongs to you. We take off our crowns and we bow down, right? You hear people pray this stuff, right? And he says, well, deny your flesh. No. Christ didn't die for that. Well, didn't he deny his flesh? No. I follow Christ, though, but not when he denies his flesh. Well, didn't he fast? Well, no. I follow Christ except when he fasted, because you don't have to fast. That stuff doesn't matter. Well, didn't he obey all the law? Didn't he even say in the Sermon on the Mount that those who teach the law and live by it are the greatest, but those who don't teach the law and tell you not to live by it are the least? And then he said you should know the law greater than the scribes and the Pharisees. No. I follow Christ, but up to a point. Okay, well, if you're ashamed, he also said this, if you're ashamed of me on earth, then I'll be ashamed of you in front of my Father in heaven.
You reject me, I'm going to reject you.
Yeah. Persons don't like it, but it's the truth. Yeah, the most important, you got to know what you're eating, Sister Beverly, come on. Right, study for yourself. How you doing, Lady B? Thanks for being on. Thank y'all for the love. How you doing? Is it Curtis Elness? I don't know if I'm saying it correctly. Chris Praise. Yeah. Yes, we're at Feast of Tabernacles. Yes. Yep, you hear the stuff moving on around us and about us. Right? But all these different things, right? So going back to, and today we've been focusing on the word this whole week. Today we're focusing on not believing the word of the world. The word of the world is dangerous, right? The word of the world, we put it above, especially when we put it above Yah, right? And give me a second. Somebody asked specifically, right? So hold on one second. Let's see. Okay, hold on. Okay, especially so it's about well, we'll read all three of these. I'm not sure which one is the one I'm thinking of, but we'll read all three. Exodus, if you want to go here real quick, Exodus chapter 23, verse 19. And by the way, it's saying that you can't boil, I think you're not supposed to boil the child in the mother's milk. In other words, you're not supposed to mix the mother and child together. Okay? All right. Exodus 23:19, first place. It says, the first of the first fruits of thy land thou shalt bring into the house of Yehovah thy Elohim. Thou shalt not seethe, which is boil, right? Seethe a kid, or seethe a baby, an offspring of a goat. Thou shalt not seethe the offspring of a goat in his mother's milk. All right, so that's first scripture. Second scripture, Exodus chapter 34, verse 26. That's why sometimes, too, I just say, if y'all want, just look it up, because you can find them, especially nowadays with Google, pretty easy. But Exodus chapter 34 and verse 26, if we go there real quick, here's the next one that's listed. It says, the first of the first fruits of thy land, same thing, just about, right? Thou shalt bring into the house of Yehovah thy Elohim, right? So when you were doing first fruits, so this would be around the time of the... First fruits is around the feast of unleavened bread. So around the time of Feast of Unleavened Bread, we would bring our first fruits. We would bring the best that we had to the Most High. So he said, so this is around this time, and during that time, thou shalt not seethe. Once again, you shall not take a baby or take offspring of a goat and put it inside of its mother's milk, right? So you should not mix the two together, right? All right. And then here's another one. Deuteronomy chapter 14, verse 21. Deuteronomy, known for being the second law, by the way, if you didn't know that, that's what Deuteronomy actually it stands for, as far as the it's a Latin or Greek way of saying it. We're going to go to Deuteronomy chapter 14, verse 21. Deuteronomy chapter 14, verse 21. Forgive me, my device is acting up. I gotta actually flip it on here like I'm flipping pages. All right, Deuteronomy chapter 14, verse 21. It reads as follows. It says, "Ye shall not eat of anything that dieth of itself. Thou shalt give it unto the stranger that is at thy gates, that he may eat it." So you shouldn't eat it. Foreigners eat that stuff, but you don't eat it. That's what it's saying. You know, you can give it to the stranger who needs help outside because they eat stuff like that. We don't eat that. See, they're not in the system. Or I'm sorry, they're not in our system. They're in their system. Let them eat it. Did you catch that? Did you catch that? Literally, right? So if somebody has something and you find out, oh, it's got pork on it, it's got this, it's got something that I'm not supposed to eat. If somebody in the world eats it, don't feel guilty. Like the law actually says, you can go ahead and give it to them. We just don't eat it, right? I'm not saying I'm gonna cook it for you or nothing, but if I end up having something like that, I'm gonna give it to somebody else, right? So back to verse 21. Ye shall not eat of anything that dieth of itself. Thou shalt give it unto the stranger that is in thy gates, that he may eat it, or thou mayest sell it unto an alien. You may even sell it, right? So by the way, Israelites did have, even though they're unclean, we did have places in Israel where there were pigs and stuff. We couldn't eat it, we couldn't do stuff. So guess what some of those persons would do, right? You sell them to others. We don't eat it. I know that sounds weird, and I'm not even saying you should. And if you do that, by the way, you have to make sure that you're clean after dealing with them. But so once again, I don't know if this has ever happened to you. You go to a store or you go to the not grocery store, you go to the restaurant, fast food restaurant, something. You make an order. Hey, I want blah blah, but no bacon, right? You tell them no bacon several times, and then and a lot of times you have to check because they always put bacon on your stuff when you say not. But let's say you go and you forget to check, and you go, oh, there's bacon on it. According to the word, if you wanted to give it to somebody else, you don't want to waste it, you could give it to a stranger or somebody who's not in the way. That's what it says here. Doesn't mean you necessarily have to. If you feel guilty about it, don't feel free. It's not saying you have to. I'm just saying here, you see very clearly it says, hey, they can eat it because they eat that stuff. We don't eat it. So if you want to give it to them, let the stranger at the gates. That means that they're not even supposed to be in the house or in the land of Israel. They're supposed to be outside the gate with that stuff. We aren't even supposed to eat. If you're eating stuff that's abominable, that should be outside the gate. All right. So verse 21, once again, Deuteronomy 14:21. Ye shall not eat of anything that dieth of itself. Thou shalt give it unto the stranger that is inside the gates. Right. Excuse me. I would think, in my mind, I was thinking it should be out. Excuse me. Let me correct myself. The word said that was a Kofi, and that was a Bible. All right. That he may eat it, or thou mayest sell it unto an alien. Right. For thou art an holy people unto Jehovah thy Elohim. The end of it once again says, thou shalt not sieve or boil, right, or mix even a kid, offspring of a goat, in his mother's milk. Right. So those are 3 verses we just went over. Right. If you didn't catch those 3 verses, once again, since somebody asked, that's Exodus 23:19, Exodus 34:26, and Deuteronomy 14:21. Okay? All right, so that was those 3. What was the last one? Oh, Deuteronomy, right? Deuteronomy 14:21, I think. Okay, I'm sure I got that in my little notes. Okay. Also, too. So when you were asking, so I see the question mark. So when it says died to itself, it's talking about like it did. Basically, it wasn't killed. It's not in a sanctified manner. It wasn't done holy. Right? There's a certain way we're supposed to even make sure animals are slaughtered, or well, we would say slaughtered nowadays, but I guess it's still the same term. But how an animal is, because anytime an animal, whether for eating purposes or for sacrificial purposes, etc., an animal is always technically being sacrificed, right? Everything we do is unto the Lord, right? So every time an animal is sacrificed, it's supposed to be the same way, in the same manner. Whether it's going to be, now obviously for a sacrifice, we're doing different things with the altar and everything, but whenever you take the life of an animal, it should always be done in the same manner. So that's what it's saying. If it's not done in the manner that Yah has commanded us, right? So if somebody has a lamb, and right, the way that you would, I don't know, I won't be too gory, but long story short, if you know how the lamb is on the 10th day of the year before Passover, right, how the lamb is prepared, if you will, or at first how it loses its life. The same way it loses its life there is the same way it's supposed to lose its life when you eat lamb throughout the whole year. If it's not prepared that same way, then it's unholy. So that's what it says if it dies to itself, right? Because if it dies to itself, it's not set apart. If it's set apart, it didn't die to itself. It died what? It died unto the Most High, right? Just like when, so the same, so by the way, oh, that's a great question. Because by the way, when the Bible says you must die to yourself, that means that you have to do a certain way of sacrifice. If you don't sacrifice a certain way, then you die to yourself. But really, you dying to yourself is not really for you dying to yourself. You're supposed to die to yourself, meaning, hey, if you're dying to yourself, really, we're actually, the term is more so talking about dying unto the Most High, right? So if an animal dies to itself, or even if an animal, let's say an animal just died, right? If you found one on the street, don't, that, we don't really deal, if somebody has to deal with the dead, there's certain ways we do that, and they have to clean themselves a certain way. You don't just pick up a dead animal. We were doing that on the way to baptism. On the way to baptism, there was a squirrel in the middle of the road, and one of the babies, babies like whatever, so they were like hovering over it. We had to say, hey, we're about to do something clean. We're about to do baptism, right? We can't touch any unclean thing, especially in this moment, or else we're gonna get messed up. Right, so we don't want to dirty the whole thing. So even in that sense, if it dies to itself, but yeah, so when we die to ourselves, the language, if you notice, it'll not just say die to yourself, but it'll start giving you instructions as how to do something, because you don't want to just die to yourself within yourself. You want to die as if you're dying to yourself to what? To actually be a living sacrifice unto the Most High. So that's when it says die to itself with the animal. That's kind of the gist of it. You said Eve's first name is where Ishtar comes from. No, Eve's first name is not where Ishtar comes from. Ishtar was a woman. She was the wife of Cush. If you do some research, you got to go outside the 66 books for that. But if you do some research, and other nations and other belief systems say the same thing. By the way, we're not the only ones. There was a woman by the, I always mess up the pronunciation of her name. I think it's Samarias or Samamarias or something like that. But Samarias, she began to call herself Aishata, right? Now, so that's where you have to be careful too, because once again, worldly stuff gets in the pulpit. It's like when people say Lilith was before Eve or Lilith was Eve. The Bible even talks about Lilith, and you shouldn't have anything to do with Lilith at all. That's a spirit that we shouldn't have any interaction with, right? But long story short, so Ishtar was the wife of Cush. She's the one who said when Nimrod passed away, or when Nimrod was offed, she said that he became the sun. And then she started telling people that, because she was very promiscuous. If you notice, like whenever you see a statue unto her, it always has a bunch of breast on it. And the reason why is because it's like an animal. When animals have, our women are not animals, obviously, but the way that they describe her is like she's very fertile. She has a lot of pap. She was very promiscuous, so she had a lot of children. And even Nimrod, her son, right? She was with Cush. Nimrod, her son, became victorious after Cush got defeated. She then left her husband for her own son, right? So she was all out there, and it's a lot of stuff. And everybody knew, by the way, it's one of the things we forget. Everybody's been waiting on the Messiah from Genesis chapter 3, right? We knew that the Messiah was coming. Isaiah chapter 9 is just basically retelling of Genesis 3. Revelation 12 is basically a retelling of Genesis 3. Right, we've been waiting on the Son for a long time. So everybody who's waiting on the Son and looking for it to be born again, right, to be born into a woman, there's a woman that's going to be married, right? We find out later in Jeremiah 3 that woman was Israel. However, for many people even before then, right, they're looking for somebody. So when Nimrod ends up getting offed when she ends up getting off, right, there's an argument. Okay, I'll leave it there, right? There's an argument for who offed her, and I know we went over this, and persons were like, I thought we finished this, but I'll one day when it's Q&A, I'll bring it up again. Today's not Q&A, so I don't want to go too far into Q&A stuff, because we're starting to go a little farther away from what the assignment is. But long story short, when Nimrod is offed, she then went and told everybody, that or she kept on saying whatever it was to make sure that she was still being worshipped or whatever, because people worship Nimrod. Nimrod gets off, and when he gets off, she gets pregnant by somebody else later on down the road, and she tells them that, well, her son Nimrod is the son. That's where we start with the whole S-O-N is the S-U-N. She said that Nimrod actually is the son. and she said that his rays impregnated her, and she said she's actually from the moon, right? Aishatar, from the moon. And she said she came down from the moon in an egg, which is where you get the Ishtar or the Easter egg from. And then when you put that stuff together, right, out of that comes, um, out of that came a baby that was born called Tammuz, right? Tammuz was supposed to be the son of the S-U-N, the manifestation of the son, or the son of their so-called god Nimrod, who was above them, and the son of Ishtar. But then he got off in a boring accident when he was a preteen or a teenager, something like that. So he never lived, and that kind of died with him as far as the name Tammuz. A lot of person don't even know it, even though you use, if you're seeing any flags, including, you have to be careful, including some Islamic flags, when you see that moon up there and stuff, a lot of that is actually tied to people who did a lot of Ishtar stuff. Not always, right? But there are some who don't realize where some of that stuff is coming from. But yeah, so Ishtar said that she was, in fact, Eve, but once again, or said she was Eve. Now, Eve is not even called Eve. The reason why you call her Eve is because of the moon in the evening. So you're still doing the Ishtar thing. That's somebody else's belief system. Even there's a group of persons who worship the moon. They're called lunatics, and lunatic didn't used to mean crazy. Lunatics were considered to be crazy because they worship the moon. And people said, well, if you worship in the moon like that, and then they got into some people thinking about werewolves and other things, and started thinking y'all are crazy. So that's why to this day you call a lunatic somebody crazy, but the reality is a lunatic just was somebody into lunar worship, right? Now we have lunar calendar, but we don't worship the moon. So we're not a lunatic, even though we believe in following the lunar calendar, right? So those persons who actually worship the moon worship Eve, right? The moon comes out on the eve, so she was the Eve, the moon goddess. The Ishtar came from the moon and the egg, all those different things, right? And then she was able to manifest through her husband's last son, like Gaia, if you know about the Gaia story with Neptune and stuff like that. That's, and how the firmament came into being. That's their version of all that craziness or foolishness, which exists. I guess not their version. That's what she made up. And later on down the road, the Greeks take some of that and start doing weird stuff with it too. Probably the Eritreans, not the Eritreans, I'm forgetting what they call it. Starts with an E. They were right next to Rome. I forget what they called them. Etruscans. Probably Etruscans had it, had their stuff and got that stuff from there as well. Yeah. So anyways, but yeah, so the name of Eve in the Bible actually is Ayazar, which means help me. That's her name given by the Most High. The Most High said Adam, man, means Ayazar, help me, right? And then Adam does his work, realizes in his work how much he needs Ayazar. So he touches and agrees that he needs Ayazar because everybody else has helped me, Ayazar. He goes to sleep, he wakes up, he has help me, Ayazar, right? Then he changes his title, then he gives them both a title. He says, for this cause will Aish, or a husband, leave his mother and father and cleave to his Aishah, his wife, and the two will become one flesh. Then when they become father and mother of all creation, he says, he calls her name when the Bible says, because persons are using stuff in their culture and that moon worship stuff, putting it in your Bible, and we don't even know they did this. When you see that thing that says moon, or I'm sorry, when you say, it says in Genesis, your name will be, or Adam now called her name Eve, or now said she is Eve. It doesn't say that. If you look in even your concordance, it will say that is Amma. Now we would do Aleph, Mem, Aleph, or A-M-A. But they put in there Amma, A-M-E, right? But the same thing. And if you look at what it means mother. So Amma means mother. You said everybody has to help me? No, all the animals, right, that he was naming, all the animals that Adam named, they had helpmates. He was the only creation that had no helpmate. So when he realized that the necessity of a helpmate through his work and guarding the garden and keeping these things and realizing, wait a minute, everything can multiply. I can be fruitful, right? But I can't multiply. I'm not replenishing. I can subdue. When I'm missing something, then he was able to get a helpmate to help him in the physical multiplication. He couldn't multiply within himself, right? So yeah, so Adam, man, the first man that was made outside the garden, that put inside the garden to dress and to keep it. He said, where's my proof? It's in the Bible. Are you saying that if you don't believe in the Bible, then I mean, it is what it is. But I don't understand. I just, if you just got on here, like in the last few seconds, maybe you didn't hear me, but the last few minutes was just, a couple minutes was talking about that specifically. So once again, if you go in the Bible, and you'll see that. So watch this. The name man, right? We're talking about Hebrew language, original language, Ofori, not the stuff that you guys are reading in English and don't recognize where it comes from, right? So watch this. So Adam means man. That's what his name means, right? Adam means man, right? It can also mean a spirit as well. Doesn't necessarily have to be flesh, but in his case, Adam means man. Okay, so you're Muslim, all right? So cool, no problem. So Adam means man, Adam. That's what it means, Avla, or in the original Hebrew. Okay. No. You ask the question, you can get an answer, right? Especially if your first thing out of your mouth is, "Where's the proof for this?" And if you can't even start off with "May peace be upon thee," and I can also respond, "May shalom or peace be upon you." So we probably, I don't know how the conversation's gonna go, right? If we can't be peaceful at first, in my culture, that's a big deal, right? And in the Muslim culture, it is as well, right? So anyway, so Adam means man, and then Adam, right? It doesn't say. You see in English these words woman and all these different things. It says Adam named all the animals. He was given a work. He was given an assignment, and he names all the animals. And in naming all the animals, he realizes that what? Oh, I don't have a helpmate. All these other animals do. I do not. Before that, Yahweh had said, Yahweh aside la'ah or la'ah. I'm sorry. Yeah, la'ah Adam bad, or it is not righteous that Adam would be alone. I will make for him a helpmate, but he waits for Adam to see in the assignment he needs to help me, right? Which is Ayazad. He needs to help me. Once he gets to help me, then the help me, right? Help me. That's who we're talking about. He needs help me. He needs help me. He then agrees that he needs help me. Then, whether he's talking about Genesis, whether you're talking about Chronicles of Noah, whether you're talking about Enoch, whether you're talking about even what's the one I'm looking for? I'm sorry, Jubilee, right? They all say the same thing. Once he realized and recognized he needed to help me, then he was put to sleep, right? And then surgery took place. Yah reached inside of him and took the materials that were in him and formed and shaped. How you doing, Sister Shima? Formed and shaped Ayazar. You are said in English, it says woman, but he formed and shaped Ayazar, help me. Then he woke up and saw help me, knew exactly who she was and what her assignment was. And then where it says in the Bible it says, for this cause will a man leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife. If you actually research that word man there is not man, it's not Adam, right? That word man there is Aish, or some of you would say Ish in modern Hebrew. That word man there is Aish, as in husband. And that word wife is wife, which is Aisha, or Isha, some of you say. So he says, for this cause will a man leave his mother and father and cleave, or will a Aish leave Abba Amma and cleave to his Aisha. That means he'll leave his mother and father, right? Anybody who's going to be of his lineage, if you are going to be married, you have to leave your mother and father as a husband and cleave to your wife. Not meaning you can never see them again, but you won't put them above your wife, right? And then after that, after they sin, when you do the research, it says that Adam, at Ayazar, they fall. And it says Adam named her, gave her a title, not the Most High. By the way, he gave her the title wife and gave himself the title husband too, not the Most High. Adam did that, right? Right, but Adam at that point was 100% in agreement with Yah's word. He did not sin. So if he said it, it's as if Yah said it. That's why Yah said you can name the animals, because Adam, whatever you name the animal, I'll name it. If you name that a bear and you're in perfect reflection of me, then that's what I would have called it anyway. If you name it a bird, that's what I would have called it anyways, right? You're a perfect reflection. You think like me. You operate like me. You walk with my Holy Spirit all day in the cool of the day, right? We rap so much. So yeah. So the same thing. When he named himself husband and named her wife, right? That's what the Most High would have done anyways. It's not the Most High who actually said that. It's Adam. A lot of you think Yah said that. No, Yah didn't say that. Adam, or man, said that, right? The first man, which is why we are called man, because just like if you're a Hebrew, well, there's Avda, right? Who's the son of Salah, who's the son of Salah, who's the son of Arphaxad, who's the son of Shem. So those who are Shemitic are Hebrew, those who are Hebrew are Shemitic, and you speak Shemitic language. The Shemitic language that you speak is Hebrew because that's what your father spoke. That's what that means, right? You should also often learn what your forefathers spoke. This is why we have a problem with the Bible, because we're trying to be a nation and not look at what our forefathers spoke, including the Most High, because according to Jubilee chapter 12, Avda is the language of all creation. And Abraham learned it when he was faithful to the Most High and left his father, his physical father, alone, and said, I will no longer support him as his physical father in death, right? He's gone, and I'm going to go ahead and leave as the Most High tells me to, and I'm going from Padan Aram, right, from so-called Syria into the land of Canaan, right? So after all that happens with so-called Adam and Iazar, or Adam and help me, man and help me, that's their names. Then after they sin and they fall short, Adam then names her, because they're going to have children after this. He names her Amma, which means mother. Once again, look in your concordance. If you don't believe me, where it says Eve, it is not Eve short for evening. It is not Eve short for the moon goddess. It is not Eve short for Ishtar, right? It's not Eve somehow connected to Lilith. It is, when you look up that term Eve in its origin, even in modern Hebrew, which is what you're looking at in Strong's Concordance, you're not even looking at the original, but even in modern Hebrew, they will say that her name is Amma. Amma means what? Mother. Or not mother, sorry, her name, her title is mother, because she's about to become a mother, so now she's given a new title, Amma. Abba is Aleph Bet Aleph, right? Aleph, if you don't know, is basically the letter A on the side, right? It's the original. Before the alphabet, there was the Aleph bit. But you would think of it as the letter A on the side. That means source, father, strength, ox, etc., right? Source, father, one, holy, right? First, etc., right? So there's two sources on the side, and then in the middle is something called Ba'it or Bit. Bit is the house or the family. So the house comes out of the father, right? The seed of the father, that's the bloodline, right? That's why Christ doesn't have an earthly bloodline. Never did, right? His seed came from his father in heaven, right? But the Bit, the son, because not the right family, that's what Bit is. But you have the house. So the family, or the son, the family, the bloodline comes out of the father, Abba. But then Amma is source on both sides, and in the middle of it something called Min, or we would even pronounce it in the original form as Mom, right? And Mom or Mim means water, blood, and spirit. So in the source, which is the father, Abba, is the bloodline, is the family lineage, right? But in the source, which is the mother, Amma, the multiplier, is water, blood, and spirit. And what is inside of her? The water, right? The water breaks, right? Blood. She's carrying the bloodline, and also too during the process, the DNA and everything mixed together, and the blood might even mix together as well, right? To a certain degree. But then also what happens as well, right? Then you also have the spirit. She's carrying the spirit. So Adam by himself, man by himself, could not what? He could not multiply. He could not multiply without a multiplier, without Amma. Abba without Amma is not going to get it done. Right? That's why we have to go back to the origin. We have to keep origin, we have to keep word pure, we have to know what it means. We'll argue for stuff that we feel a certain way about, but that's why, like we're saying today, we're talking about getting out of the world. At least the word of the world. We're using the word of the world to try and make sure that we use it from pulpits all day today. You're going to hear persons talking about all these different things. Some churches are getting ready for October 31st. They're not going to call it Hallows Eve or Halloween, which it is. They're going to call it Harvest Day. Problem with that is, though, is that our Harvest Day is in spring. And spring in the Bible, right? We started spring this year, March 29th. Harvest Day a long time ago. Harvest Day starts the 15th day of the year when we start getting into the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So if you're going to celebrate Harvest Day, see, and it's always interesting. Remember, persons will do this whole, oh, well, that's Old Testament stuff, as if the Old Testament, New Testament wasn't just recently written in your Bibles, right? But that's Old Testament stuff. Well, then why do you talk about Harvest Day so your children can dress up for Halloween? See, the word of the world has crept in to your assembly. You'll see persons talking about today. On Sunday, some of your churches will have persons, yep, we're going to have Harvest Day, we're going to have an amazing time, and if they can go ahead and do that stuff in the world, why can't we do it in the church? That's what they say. I know it because I traveled quite a bit, played music at quite a few places. I was blessed to be able to preach at quite a few places. I've traveled around the world, I've traveled around the country, way more than the world, and when I've seen this stuff in different places, they keep coming up with the same excuses. Right? Harvest Day Harvest Day is in your Bible, yes. You're exactly right. But Harvest Day is not October 31st. It's not. Matter of fact, here's a homework assignment for you. You show me the place where they actually do Harvest Day, October 31st. Yeah, you said you remember when churches didn't celebrate Halloween? Yeah, remember it used to be a really bad thing to do? You know what's crazy? Do you know that there was a time in what you call the United States of America, there was a time where nobody celebrated Christmas? Did you know that? It was outlawed for a while. You don't celebrate Christmas because it's biblical. You said now it's called Fall Festival. How you doing, Brother Yachsa? How you doing, Sister Sherry? How you doing, Yachsa? Thanks for being part of the community. No, not just they didn't call it Xmas. That's what they call it now. They didn't celebrate Christmas. If you know, well, so yeah, they call it Xmas and stuff like that too. But as far as the Puritans, or the so-called Puritans, they weren't called Puritans back then, right? But for the so-called Puritans, when they came through, they didn't like Christmas. Remember, the Puritans came over on a ship that was supposed to not even make it over. The king wanted the Puritans to be offed. They ran, I believe, into Dutch lands, but they didn't like the fact that their children started learning Dutch. They didn't believe everybody was doing the Bible the way that they should. They didn't like it, and they wanted everybody to do the way the Bible that they did. So they went back to the king, even though it meant that they might lose their life, and they said, hey, can you just send us to this prison colony that you have shaped up here? Because a lot of persons forget. The United States of America basically was based upon a prison colony. I mean, there were Native Americans here first, but when they were sending persons over, they were prison. A lot of them weren't first coming over here looking for the new world. A lot of them were sent because they were persons that they couldn't handle. They were like, go over there and fend for yourself. And a lot of them died off, and the king, the crown, was happy that they died. Same thing in Australia, by the way. Do your research. Send them over to the prison colony. So when you say, why is there so much wickedness and stuff over here? It's because the riffraff was sent over here. You shouldn't be surprised that somebody who was supposed to hang for their crimes and is allowed to keep living comes over and starts offing a whole bunch of persons with, smallpox and stuff like that. Shouldn't surprise us if you know what's going on. Oh, hey, Jake, how you doing? You know what? When people speak ad hominem, which is basically joning to play in the dozens, that's what happens when somebody doesn't have the intelligence to actually make a point. So if you have a point to me, hey, feel free to stay on. If not, your trolling got to go up. That's light work. And I believe you're more than light work, but maybe you are. But if not, we're praying that at some point you want to be somebody that's powerful, because what you got in you right now is stuff that ain't going to affect a little, a molecule or a morsel. It ain't moving nothing. What I got, it moves mountains. Right? But you got to realize that this thing called Christmas, when they came over, they didn't like it. They tried to get rid of it. They outlawed it because, you guys might not know this. Do you guys know, how you doing, Brother Dwayne? Do you know originally what happened on the 12 days of Christmas? Right? You know what happened on the 12 days of Christmas? The 12 days of Christmas, when you hear that song, on the first day of Christmas, the true love gave to them, right? A partridge in the pear tree and all that, and they go through all that, and 5 golden rings and all these different things. I forget what it is, 5 golden rings, 4 something birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and your partridge in the pear tree, all that stuff. The 12 days of Christmas used to be a time where persons were supposed to switch places. It got out of control. It was a party. A lot of you forget that the mixing of iron and clay, which is romantic Greco-Roman values, Babylonian values, etc., mixed in with the word of the Most High, and them trying to do whatever. That's why a lot of you do Lent, and you don't even know, or you don't even know what that is. That's why you have Ash Wednesday, first day of Lent, right after what? Fat Tuesday, whether it's Carnival, right, or forgive me, what we Mardi Gras, or whatever it is, or Mardi Gras, right? Whatever it is, you're doing those things because it's. And also some of that is Native American stuff that was seeped in there too, right? But you're having all those different things that are happening because in Eurocentric places, they used to have a time called Lupercalia. See, once again, you're believing the word. You haven't done any research. You haven't looked it up. You haven't like paid the poundment as far as research, right? So when you get Lupercalia, when you get something called Lupercalia, and Lupercalia, you have this thing where these persons are doing all this stuff over and over and over again, right? And they're having sex. over and over again, right? And that's why everybody during this time is flashing themselves and is dancing naked in the streets and all that stuff. We were supposed to do that, and you did it for like about a month period or so, a really long time. And they believed that this was when wolves got together and wolves would get pregnant. And when the wolves got pregnant, then their pups came out and stuff like that. So they did this as a fertility thing, right? Kind of tied to the Ishtar thing, like we were talking about earlier. Same spirit, right? A worldly spirit, a worldly governance. So they would do this, and then after that, so what happens is the Roman Catholic Church, who let their people and their leaders do this stuff too, but they were like, you know what, we got to get a hold on this. We can't make this look bad, but they mix iron and clay. We'll let you keep this stuff, but we got to change it up. So what you do is, instead of having sex the whole period of time, we'll let you wild out for a day or two. Maybe we even give you a week. But then after that, you got to go do Ash Wednesday, and then you have 40 days of sackcloth and ashes, right? 40 days of repentance, 40 days of giving up something, but for them it was giving up the sexual activity. Hey, hold on 1 second for me real quick now. Hey, Solomon, you looking great, sir. I like you. You said you look great. You look great. You all right? Okay. My son's out here. Making Dad proud. All right, but yeah, so that's what happened. Right, that's what happened. So when you go through this Lent thing, you're thinking this and that. You're not realizing that there was a whole thing attached to it. So that's why you give up this stuff. Now we just remove leaven from our home. A reminder to remove the sin. They do this, and they do it about 40 days before they get ready for Ishtar, for Easter, which is worshiping the moon. A whole bunch of stuff matched into the same place. Right? So you have to start going through and start looking at where does this even come from? Where does Ishtar or Easter even come from? Christmas, winter solstice, Sol Invictus, all this stuff put together. You're going through that. That's the lowering of the sun. The sun's at its lowest point. Oh wow! So we're celebrating that the sun, the SUN, is supposed to get up higher. That's winter solstice. That's Sol Invictus. That's Saturnalia. That's Christmas. Right? Then we move around and we go New Year's, because New Year's is supposed to be when they added those 2 months of your year, and now you start celebrating the new year, which is in the dead time in the winter, but they're celebrating in the winter because they say that's when the sun is starting to come back, and we're excited that we're getting closer to our sun being, or our sun spirit being the main spirit, because around Hallows Eve, you start looking at the wickedness of the dark spirit. Since the sun is starting to go down and down, it must mean that the dark spirit, now it's time to be out. Right? And then after you finish doing Happy New Year's and all that stuff, then you float around and you start getting ready for Ishtar, where you can start worshiping the moon again. The sun is in position. Now you give worship to the moon and give her what's due hers. This stuff is mixed into the culture of what was original in the Bible. And we're not even aware of it, nor when we become aware of it, we don't even want to teach it, because now persons look at us and say, well, that's not what I'm cool with. That's not what I'm nostalgic about. But that's why you have to get away from persons who are focused on the word of the world. It will support that more than they'll focus on supporting the word of the Most High. And how you doing, Tommy, if I didn't say so already? How you doing, Sharon Thomas? Thanks for being part of the community. How you doing, Bobby Starson? Thanks for being part of the community. Right? They look free, but actually it's like, yeah, we don't worship God, or we don't worship, these false spirits or whatever. Make it what you want. That's right. We worship Elohim. We live by the word of Yahweh Elohim, not somebody's opinion. Not right. I'm sorry, Sister Carla, I missed you. You said the enemy knows the truth and makes sure they have us go against the word by adding certain foods together. If you don't know, you will sin, especially if you were not raised under the word. That's right. How you doing, Cindy? Thanks for being part of the community. How you doing, Tez? Thanks for being part of the community. Anybody watching us on any platform, thank you so much for being on. Once again, I'm Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, of being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Today, we're talking about the word of the world. We've been celebrating Feast of Tabernacles. We started celebrating on the eve of Monday, and we will continue celebrating up through the eve of Monday. We may do something on Tuesday as well. In the rising, but after that I'll be taking a little break. I don't usually take breaks and stuff. We're on almost every day, even if we're not on live every day. I'm going doing something somewhere as chelet or assembler of the assembly, or what you would call pastor of the congregation, servants of Christ. And our by the way, if you're listening for the first time and you don't know, our focal verse as far as the assembly, we get the term or the name servants of Christ from Ephesians chapter 6 verse 6. Right. Also, too, by the way, once we get back, I don't know if it'll be in November or December, but we're going to make sure we do our next set of graft-in sessions. That's our, if you will, it's a way of us doing new member classes to make sure that nobody can say that they don't know what's going on, make sure we're all on the same page, and you can ask questions and come on Zoom for that. We do a whole bunch of stuff besides what you're just seeing today, but I can't talk about all of it, at least to the end, because they start denying persons a chance to be able to find us if I so-called promote other things outside of just the social media platforms. I have to be very careful with my language on that. But we love you, we thank you, we appreciate you. Hopefully this is blessing you and your family. Thank you for your righteous walk, your tzedek, your righteousness in Yah. And hopefully this is something that's helpful. And today we're focusing, once again, as we've been focused on the word the whole week, we're focusing on not looking at the word of the world or not being entranced by it or unlearning some of these things. We have to unlearn the learn. Right, we have to unlearn the learn. How you doing, Dorian? Thanks for being part of the community. We have to begin to unlearn the learn. How you doing, Michael? We have to unlearn these things that have been put in us. You think George Washington is this, but he clearly child of slave owner. Matter of fact, as much as everybody says the United States of America is for the free, home of the free, land of the brave, problem is especially, once again, there's 8 presidents before George Washington, but if you want to just say, well, that's Continental Congress, or that's pre-Constitution. Right? You want to just look at 1787, 1789, 1791. We want to ignore the Moors that had to get permission and all that too. Okay, we'll do that. Even if we do that, then we have to talk about George Washington. We got to be honest. George Washington, right? He has a manor that you can still go visit today. These people worship, these persons, so they keep their stuff alive and their memories alive. And so you can still go where George Washington lived, right? A place called Mount Vernon, right? In Virginia, not too far actually from when I went to high school, where I was. I didn't even know how close I was, but not too far from that, not too far from those that are in the DMV. You can go see it. Mount Vernon. Mount Vernon is in Virginia. Guess why Mount Vernon is in Virginia? And guess why it's important that we know that it's attached to George Washington? Because George Washington was a Virginia slave owner. Matter of fact, the reason why he could help out and make Washington, D.C., which now doesn't exist the way it used to, but it used to be a perfect square, now it's not, is because that he was able to get Virginia and other Virginia slave owners on board to make sure that they gave up certain land to make one part of the square, and Maryland slave owners to make sure they took another part of the square. Yes, Maryland slave owners. Yes, Maryland Eastern Shore. That's where Harriet Tubman had to run away from. Maryland, right there, right? Maryland Eastern Shore. Annapolis, Navy Annapolis. Yeah, Annapolis. That's slave territory. That's where the real Kunta Kinte actually came in, and the ship was actually there. Right? They turned it into a church, and they used the rest of it to turn into a museum. That's where Kunta Kinte came in, right? Yes, Maryland, Baltimore, on the Baltimore Harbor. Go to places like Canton and stuff, or the Canton Park, or whatever that's called, right there in Baltimore Harbor. That's where slaves were coming in. That's what we're talking about. Persons don't want to have honest conversations. If we mention slavery, persons go, "Oh, you're a reverse racist." No, we're just talking about the truth. You see, if I mention George Washington, when they want to talk about that, he's a Virginia slave owner, right? And that when he built the White House, even though, he didn't build it himself, nor did he live in it because he wasn't president long enough, right? He basically had a great first term, or at least so everybody thinks. But persons in the second term got tired of him so much, and he just went ahead and went away. You're told that he was, he was just so pious, and he was so great, and he had so much chutzpah. He was so brave to make sure that he set a great thing. He didn't want people to think you should just be president over. He was against kings, and persons forget to tell you that him and King George were like this. But he was so anti-king, we forget that the so-called Revolutionary War was actually a civil war, because you had a fight with Englishmen against Englishmen. That was the fight, right? That's a civil war. If England goes to war with England, that's a civil war. If America goes to war with America, that's a civil war. If France goes to war with France, that's a civil war. The only reason why you call it Revolutionary War is usually because somebody won. Right? There was revolution and somebody won. That's you usually don't hear anybody say Revolutionary War when somebody lost, even though it's all revolution. Right? Right? Chattel slavery still technically still existed in prison, but chattel slavery still existed. But there were persons who revolted all the time. But you don't hear them be so called revolutionary wars, right? Because supposedly they didn't win. So you got to be careful when they dictate this stuff. So there's been at least 2 civil wars that we have to speak of with the United States of America already. Right? Both fought for the same reason, by the way: capitalism versus chattel slavery. Right? Now, one, we go taxation without representation, but the Crown was saying not only do we need taxation, the Crown, England at the time, was saying, oh yeah, we need not only taxation, but we need what? We need to make sure that we release, or I'm sorry, we need to make sure that we start going towards capitalism. Not because they didn't have chattel slaves themselves, they did, but because they needed to make sure that capitalism was running, and capitalism has to at least have the premise, even if it's a false premise, it has to have the premise of competition, right? And so you have to, even if you're going to keep persons on the bottom, it's better for society if you keep them mentally enslaved, not necessarily have them in chains. But those who are a select few, right, in the South, right, that includes Maryland and stuff. Really, at that point, let's not pretend that slavery wasn't all over the United States of America or so-called United States of America or what would become it. Right, all the way up into Canada too, because persons forget that the territories was not just the territories that ended up becoming America, but there were other territories in Canada that were on the East Coast as well, and they and other colonies, and they disagreed with what was going on too. Problem was is that England was going to send their armies into them first, and nobody down in what you call America had the guts to say, well, we'll go up there and help you when they come in. So they said, well, if you're not going to help us, then we're just going to stay English. That's how that happened. Go do your research. There were more than just 13. There were a whole bunch of colonies that said we're not with this thing too. But when the so-called American colonies, who are always so brave, decided that they weren't going to help out, they said, oh well, yeah, well if y'all aren't going to leave us hanging, then y'all can be hanging by yourselves. And George Washington and others who were there, by the way, when King George said, okay, y'all are doing this, y'all are traitors to the crown, when we do the traitors, we're going to take your life. They wrote a letter first. Before you talk about the Declaration of Independence, they first wrote a letter to the king saying, please don't harm us. We were out of pocket. And the king said, no, we're coming for you. And we're going to put proper leadership over there. And when the king said that, to save their own necks, all of a sudden, we're all Americans. And by the way, how do you become an American? Because by law, an American is a copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas. Because America is not just the United States of America. America is all the way from sea to shining sea, sure, but it goes up to the north of North America, all the way down to the south of South America. So how do you become an American and you're a European who has colonized a place, meaning that you own the persons who are actually the American, right? How do you make yourself an American in an illegal, unlawful way? You put on copper face or black face. You put on makeup on your face. You go and you get the stuff that you chopped off of the head of other persons and scalped and put them on, and then you go like this and you throw tea over and you say we're an American now. See, we were lied to, right? I'm telling you. I'm telling you, like all this stuff you learn, but you learn it separately. But when you put it together, then you go, wait a minute, that's exactly how it happened. Like, how are you an American? Like, by law, we know that an American had to be Native American. So how are you American, and then they're Native American? It's like when people say, oh yeah, there's Hebrew, and then there's Paleo. No. There's Hebrew, and then there's modern Hebrew. Right? The original Avra, the original Ivrit, the original Hebrew is what it is. Anything that you change it into, then we got to qualify that, right? Like there's one president. If you're in the United States corporation, right? There's one president, right? That's truth. There's a president. There's a vice president, right? There's cabinet members. There's treasurers. There's secretaries. There's congresspersons. They're all on the board. They're all part of a trust. But the president is the president. There's one. We don't have to qualify him. POTUS is POTUS. That's it. President of the United States is president, period. If you go to a corporation and there's a president, that's the president. Vice president or president of this, fine. Or in those, they might even say your CEO, right? And then there's presidents, and then there's all this other stuff, right? And the president sets precedents. Come on, somebody. The president sets precedents. So these Virginia slave owners, George Washington, he builds a White House. See, we got to stop talking about. We got to admit to the lies and show you that you into some worldly stuff and you supporting stuff and some Christian nationalist stuff that really is mixing with the Zionist stuff, and you got to know where it comes from. See, the president sets the precedence. George Washington built a White House in the middle of a plantation called Washington, D.C. And it was supposed to help them to build and make decisions, but he built a plantation. And for those that don't believe it, when you go to Washington, D.C., it's a swamp. right? They built it and made it look nice, but it's a swamp, right? Persons don't go fishing in the water, any of that. It's a swamp. It's right. There's certain things that grow in there. There's mosquitoes. I remember the first time I went back home to Africa, and they were saying, "Oh, when you go back there, you're gonna get bitten by this and bitten by this and bitten by this." I think I heard one mosquito first time I went back whole time, and everything after that, you know, everything after that. So I heard like one mosquito, I think, and never got bit anything. Didn't take the medicine for it, any of that. Right, paid for it, paid for the pills, never took it. Right, as soon as I got back to Washington D.C., came off the Ronald Reagan International Airport or D.C. Airport, whatever it is nowadays. As soon as I got off there, bit up. And right, but also too, here's more for you. When you go on the metro, the train station, if you go on the train station, on the metro station, you'll discover that there's different lines and stuff. There's different stops, right? One stop is called Foggy Bottom. I believe it's Orange Line. Could be Blue Line. Could be, I don't think it's Red Line. I think it's Orange or Blue Line. Might be both, right? But you get off at Foggy Bottom. When you get up there, you'll see that there's George Washington University. You'll see there's George Washington University Hospital. You'll see that there's a grocery store, not a Harris Teeter's, but something like that, right? Over there, you'll see apartments and all that. You'll see it's really nice, right? Right there, though, in Foggy Bottom, where George Washington University Hospital is, that used to be, the reason it's called Foggy Bottom is because it was the place where the slaves lived. It was foggy, right? The slaves lived there. It was a swamp. That's where their quarters were, right? But you were taught George Washington was just, no, any president, all the way through president number 18, not only were, and some of them were slave owners even past that still, but up to president 18, all of them owned slaves, right? And up to 16, that includes Lincoln, at least. 17, 18, probably so as well. But up to Lincoln, right? Maybe they didn't call them slaves anymore after Lincoln. But up to Lincoln, every person who lived in the White House was a slave owner. Because the slaves belonged to the president. So when you hear that, so when you see that the George Washington Monument was built, it's like when they talk about with the pyramids, you know how they say, oh no Israelites could have built, no Negroes could have built pyramids. They do the same thing. No Negroes were built, and this stuff was just built. The Congress building just manifested, right? We just had great persons and only persons who were Masons and stuff like that, and nobody helped survey the land. You know, they don't talk about Benjamin Banneker's and persons of that, and he was free, right? Even though his family would eventually lose all the land, because as great as he was, right, they still had to make sure that they made him poor by the end of his life. But they don't want to tell you who built it. But yes, the Negro built that stuff. They were slaves. When they were writing certain edicts and stuff, even though they would sign it with their own hand and all that, a lot of times they say, hey, slave, you write that out, and I'll put my signature on it. You know, like an Edison Thomas does, where he gets credit for a light bulb, right, and the filament in it. And the reality is somebody else who was of color had to put that there for him. Now, I'm just saying those things. There's a whole bunch of stuff we can go through in the story of mankind, but I'm trying to tell you, you've been given a word that's false. You've been given a word that's false. You're in the word of the world. You're in the word of the system. You're in the word of the beast. That's right, Lewis Lattimore, come on, right? Who did a whole bunch of stuff and had to write a whole bunch of things that were patented. He basically came up with, persons would come to Lewis Lattimore, who worked for the Edison, group, and persons would come to Lewis Lattimore and they would say, okay, I got an idea. And they would just start saying what it was. He would take what they were thinking and he would write it out for them. The person got the patent, although Lewis Lattimore was the one who actually created it. Now, we can say that it was a vision somebody else had, but he would actually be able to take things. Somebody would say, man, I have a dream that I could have a washing machine that flies, right? And he has to be the person to come up with the way, how do I get this washing machine to fly? How do I get it to wash clothes? How do I put gas in it? How do I do? He'd have to come up with the idea to write it down. Even if you can't build it, he patented it. He's the one that actually had to get you to patent. So technically, he doesn't get credit for a lot of things that he patented, but it was him. He had to design it. He had to write it out. He had to write it out in such a manner that nobody could go ahead and say it was there. So if somebody tried to take what was in your head, you could sue. How often are you taught about Lewis Lattimore, though? I wasn't even really taught about Lewis Lattimore. You know what's crazy? I went to Thomas A. Edison High School. That was the name of my high school, Thomas A. Edison High School. Right on Franconia Road, Alexandria, Virginia. Thomas A. Edison High School. Went there. Not one time did I learn about Lewis Latimer, at least not to my recollection. Probably, I actually read about him in a comic book series called Golden Legacy, but I never heard about him in school. Right? So I'm saying all these things, not to just say, hey, we're going to get on so-called racism, blah, blah, this and that. I'm trying to say all these things to let you know, like, we learned a lot of things. That's just George Washington. I could keep on going. Remember I said Virginia slave owner. This is Thomas Jefferson, Virginia slave owner. Right? Monticello, I've been to his spot a couple of times. We just went there about a month and a half ago. I think we went to his spot a month and a half ago, and then we went to Harriet Tubman's, where she was born, a little bit after that on the Maryland shore, right? I've been in the place where, like we said, where Kunta Kinte was, and there's a monument to him right in Annapolis. I've been to a lot of these places in the area, and everybody acts like nobody knows any of this stuff. Nobody wants to tell us the truth, but this is true. Yeah, I see you, Bubble High Mountains. I see you. I'm with you. Right? There's a Thomas A. Edison in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Oof. That's all right. Well, some of y'all know why I'm oofing. I'll leave that alone. All right. But I'm just saying we forget, or we just were never taught. There's a lot of stuff we were never taught. Like even in the Bible, you have movies. The movies are worldly, so you have worldly movies that come out, and in your mind you're thinking, oh no, they're talking about Moses. It can't be worldly. No. Worldly movies that lie to you and tell you that Moses went down the Nile River, but he was just put in the Nile River. Oh, you said why? Well, the fact that Thomas A. Edison, who gets credit for a lot of things that he didn't necessarily do, and the fact that it be in Tulsa, a place that was burned down to the ground not just once but several different times. We only talk about 1921, but the several times it came back, it was burned down again and again, right? Because persons were able to do things without the help of, the persons who wanted to govern. So to have Thomas Edison in high school, who's somebody who appropriates in the midst of a place to where they couldn't appropriate, so they just burned stuff down, it's kind of like, it's a little cringy. And I'm not one to tell you, because, Thomas Edison was not racist for his time, whatever that means. But I'm not one to even harp on him as far as being a bad person, per se. I'm just saying it's a little cringy because that's what he was known for, not just with Lewis Lattimore, but everybody. Right? He was known for but that was and by the way, it was a normalized thing that happened. A lot of persons would get the smartest minds together. They still do this to this day. It's like, a lot of you might not notice even, take it out of the realm of just racism, white supremacy or whatever. Steve Jobs. What did Steve Jobs ever create? And when we say that Apple went down, Apple was having issues when Steve Jobs was still alive. But what did Steve Jobs ever create? He did some things with calligraphy. So we want to say some of the stylistic stuff in the writing and things like that. But what did he actually ever create? That's a normal thing. Like you get the best minds and then persons will throw them to the side and not give them any, not even reference them, not even tell persons the truth. Oh, listen to children play is nice, yeah. Yeah, well, we're all over the place. They're sitting around over the fire, right? Actually, right now, the older children sitting there looking like old adults, writing out stuff and talking about life. It's an interesting view, right? But Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, who's the other guy that we don't give him any play either. There were 5 of them, right? But there were 3, including Steve, but there were 3. But Steve gets to say, and persons forget. Steve, even though, his parents gave him up for adoption, but, Steve Jobs, a lot of persons don't know that he actually, what is it that I'm looking for? A lot of persons don't know that, Steve Jobs, so some of you may have heard that he was adopted. And the story goes that, he never met his birth parents. No, that's not true at all. Steve Jobs actually met his birth parents. And not only that, but he would tell persons that, he would call his father the sperm donor and his mother the egg donor or something like that. Sometimes he would just lie to everybody just to make them feel bad if they didn't know. And persons who would ask about his parents, he would just say, oh yeah, they've never been in my life. But his parents actually came back for him and raised him. I think the person who took him in passed away. And his parents stepped up and did what they should have. That look, they gave him up for adoption and some hurt and things like that. But Steve Jobs did that. Steve Jobs got a girl pregnant. when he was younger, and told her, amongst many other things, it can't be his child because, you know, he can't get women pregnant. Meanwhile, later on, he'd get married a few more times and he'd have other children. With one of them, I think he had 3 right off the bat. Right, so when I guess his sperm worked at times, sometimes it didn't. And the woman, before all that happened, was able to get money for her child, the most basic amount, even though she had somebody on his way to being a billionaire. But you know, he gave her the smallest amount possible that he could on the way. And he was known for beating women. He was known for beating women that worked for him. He was known for weird behavior, like he would put his feet in toilet water. Now, hopefully it was clean, but you know, he was known. He actually he had a weird thing where he would put his feet in toilet water to wash them. Like Steve Jobs was missing some screws. But all you hear about with Steve Jobs is genius, and if it's not for him, there wouldn't be Apple. If it wasn't for him, the persons that were there might have still done it now. Or maybe he was the person that was the glue, or he was the mind that said, at least let's get together. But the reality is that he didn't build a thing, and he lost his stuff. We always go, it's so sad. They just took his stuff, and they kind of did take his company from him for a little bit. He still was making the most money off of it. With that being said, he got put back in control, and when he got back in control, certain things started to happen. And when people would say, well, this isn't going to work, he did in fact push some things. He was a visionary of sorts. But this weird thing where it's like Steve Jobs was this weird guy that was just misunderstood. No, Steve Jobs was a jerk. Steve Jobs was a bad person, right? We shouldn't listen to Steve Jobs to learn where we come from. Yeah, we travel to different states and stuff. We have persons all over who we try to make sure that they're meeting up and stuff, whether I'm there or not. For sure, we're growing, we're learning, we're becoming better. We started off well. SOC, the group, the organization has been around since like 2004. But as far as virtually, we started doing stuff in 2014. They actually shut down our channel on YouTube and shut down multiple TikTok channels over and over again. So we are kind of even growing back from that the last few years. But we've, if you go look for us in like certain, I can't say the platform for so many times, but if you look for us in different platforms, you'll see that we have like some places where a few places where tens of thousands easy followers, stuff like that. So we've been around for a little bit in different places. When I say tens of thousands, some like 40,000, 50,000, 60,000. Some places where we've reached millions of views, hundreds of millions of minutes viewed, stuff like that. So we're doing really well. So once again, if you want information and stuff, just reach out to us. Just where you're listening to, it's in the description. But we travel quite a bit. We just finished traveling this year a few times. So we try to travel and meet up with persons. I'm an actual Levite. Like I don't do anything else but what I do outside of this, teaching and then going to the community and, trying to help others who are in need, providing different things, even sometimes, as much as we can, helping persons financially and other things like that. So yeah, so you can definitely find out more information about what we do for certain, right? It's our pleasure, Dr. Desires. And how you doing? Is it Alice Yanes Jones? Thanks for being on with us. Thank y'all for the love. Thank you for the shares. We appreciate you all. So yeah, but we got a little bit more time. We a little bit more time. If you want to roll with us, we do something called a shout out at the end, by the way. You have to join us on this platform. I'll tell you what the name of it is. I have to be careful how many times we talk about platforms. It'll take us down. But if you want to join us in a little bit, feel free to do so. We'll tell you where we are, and you can go ahead and go over to that platform. And thank you guys for doing so, by the way, for being here. Even if you don't give any kind of donation, whatever it is, you donating your time and just learning, that's really what it's all about. The Most High takes care of us in all times anyways. So thank you for those, and thank you, and happy feast days to you. If you're joining us just recently, we're in the Mesa Feast of Tabernacles. This whole week we've been talking about the Word, and today we're talking about being alert of the Word of the world, or the word of the system, the word of the beast, the word of lies that have been built up in our lives. And so right now, we're continuing. So yeah, George Washington, Virginia slave owner. Thomas Jefferson, Virginia slave owner. The Thomas Jefferson, oh yeah, he really loved Sarah, but no. If you don't know, the one that y'all like to romanticize Thomas Jefferson with is a half sister to his wife. And if you know about his father, you know that his father and him owned 500 acres of land. Right? There's a lot of wild stuff that was going on. Right? If you get a chance to ever go to Monticello, sometimes it hurts to go to these places, but if you can take it, go to Monticello and look around. Go to Mount Vernon and look around for yourself. You'll see when they say this stuff how weird it is. Get yourself. I keep talking about it. I just saw it the other day. My book bag must not be here all of a sudden again. I must have moved it again. I just had it the other day in my hand. Oh no, it's in my bag in the tent. I'll bring it tonight. I keep talking about it. I'll bring it out tonight, or somebody maybe remind me. I'll bring it out tonight at 8 p.m. New York. No. There is no live session tonight. Sorry, I'll bring it out tomorrow. Somebody remind me for tomorrow, right? By the way, tomorrow early rise and Bible study session. So we'll see you for that. Praise Yah, right? If you need to be on Zoom for that. But I'll bring it for that. I'll show you guys again the Thomas Jefferson Bible, where Thomas Jefferson himself removed a whole bunch of stuff from the Bible. Y'all think that this is a Christian nation, but the forefathers were not Christians. They were Masonic, but they were not Christians. But Masons use a whole bunch of different things. So Thomas Jefferson literally rewrote the Bible. He looked at Christ. Well, he rewrote Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And how he did it was he went through Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and anything that he didn't agree with or he didn't like, he removed it. And then he wrote it in French, in English, in Latin, and in Greek. And he presented it and said, this is what I think that we should look at Christ as. Right? There's also something called a slave Bible. If you go not too far down the road, so to speak, a few hours up the road to Washington, D.C., and you go to the Bible Museum, you'll discover there's also something called the slave Bible. And you'll see that's where a whole bunch of persons rip things out. This is how Nat Turner, when he learns truth, right? The pastor was basically, he was like a Sambo spirit, or what some of you still call Uncle Tom. He was a Sambo. He was a pastor. The overseers, that's why you get those big overseer chairs in church. The overseer would come to their service, and he would sit in their seat, and he would go ahead and preach the word, and preach the word, and preach the word. And once he preached the word, right, then the overseer would come behind him. That's why your pastor always comes behind the guest preacher or the minister and speaks right after them. He would come behind them, and he would clean up what he needed to make sure that you were still in tune with master. Then all of a sudden, Nat Turner one day got his hands on an actual Bible, where it talked about stuff like Exodus and Leah. And he said, maybe I'm supposed to be Moses. Now, he didn't do it in a righteous manner. At the same time, though, he said, hey, if we got to go, we got to go. And if they won't let my people go, he said, who's with me? And they believed, I'm not saying once again, this is 100% biblical. I'm just telling you what happened. They actually believed that the Bible was what helped to set them free. That's why they revolted. By the way, Harriet Tubman called Black Moses. You think that's accidental? Or Toussaint Louverture with Haiti. He read the Bible and said, for the first time. He said, maybe I'm supposed to be Moses. Or what about Oluwadach Equiano, who actually had bought his own freedom for a while, right, as a slave on ships, right? Or, he was a slave sailor. Yes, there were sailors that were slaves. As much as they go, oh no, all the persons who were on ships, there were slaves that were doing the work on ships too. And then all of a sudden he bought his freedom. And one day he reads the Bible and he had been enslaved since he was a child. And he starts realizing, wait a minute, his language started coming back to him as he was reading the Bible. He's like, this is weird. Like, why is my language coming back? And then he started realizing, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, we didn't mix this animal with this animal either. And he was like, wait a minute, we didn't do this and that either. And we didn't have clothes that could be multiple things and all that stuff. He said, you know what? I was an Israelite. That's somebody who was a slave in 1800s. Olaudach Equiano. Olaudach Equiano. I had to say it a couple times to make sure I spell it right. Olaudach Equiano. I believe I'm saying it right. Olaudach. So that would be Olaudach. Olaudach. First name Olaudach. Last name Equiano. 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 I believe I think I got that right. Olaudach Equiano. Right? Olaudach Equiano. Right? In the midst of his reading the Bible, he realized, oh, I came from Israelites. But they will tell you and I, almost it. It has an A in front of that U. It has an A in front of that U. But if you type that in, it will pop up, right? But yeah, it's supposed to be Olaudach space Equiano. Olaudach Equiano. Right? And so if you go and you do your research, yeah, like there's person. Israel, by the way, keep on doing some research. You'll discover that there's books written that talk about Negroes in the 1500s, and that they had to stop calling us Negroes in the 1550s when they started enslaving us and forcing us to become Christian, Roman Catholic specifically. There wasn't a Protestant movement yet. That happened to the 1600s. Or no, sorry, it happens in the 1500s, but it happens later, right? The Protestant movement happens in England first, right? That happens when King Henry VIII. That's why you get that first English Bible written in 1560. You get that next one in 1590, and then you get that King James version, right, in 1611. So, like, yeah, see, so we haven't been told the truth. That's why we have to come out of the world. We have to stop listening to the word of the world. The world will have you think that I'm crazy. And then even when I start giving you more and more and more, then they say, oh, no, that's pseudo. It's pseudo theology. It's pseudo-science. It's pseudo-history. No. Tell me what's pseudo-historical. I'm giving you fact. I'm giving you name. I'm giving you names. I'm giving you time. I'm giving you dates. You know what's interesting? Praise God. I was going to say this earlier. I didn't think this was for today, but Holy Spirit has made it very apparent this is for today. One of the most powerful things that I'm starting to learn is not so much that they don't want you to know anything, it's that they don't want you to know how to put things together. Did you catch that? What I'm starting to realize and learn as I grow, as a teacher, as I grow, just as a student of life, as a human being, as a father, as a husband, as a pastor, whatever, right? Whatever you want to call me. I'm starting to realize and recognize more than anything else that they don't mind if you know certain things, but just don't know how to sew it together, right? Like I got shirts and stuff, right? That if I would just learn how to sew a little bit better, Brother TJ, how you doing? If I would just learn how to sew a little bit better, I could use those shirts for years and years and years to come. Right? But because I haven't really sat down since my military days, and even for that, it was just, I was never a great sewer. And yes, I did back in the day when we used to take stuff like home economics. I did kind of know how to sew stuff. I never really truly got it, but I could do it enough to where at least I could put, patches and stuff back together. I could sew my own patches on if need be, stuff like that, But one thing I've learned is that they don't mind you having an awareness of things, but you better not ever know it. Remember, to know something, to know something is to be intimate with it to the point of identifying it. And as long, right, you can be aware of something, just don't identify it. You said also accountability is not common in commoners. Come on, right? We're talking kingdom sense, not common sense. I see you, Sister Sherry, right? Right, but I'm just trying to show you something, trying to tell you something, right? Like a lot of you might not know. Right? How you doing, Gwinnett? Right? A lot of persons may not catch that. They're okay with you being aware of a whole bunch of things, but do not know it. Do not get to a place where you can put it together. Do not get to a place where, oh, okay, well, all these things that I'm aware of or that I've seen or that I've read in books, can I put it together simultaneously? Even when they talk about the Bible, right? I tell persons, read your Bible, it'll bless you, but then I also have to make persons aware. Many persons have never read their Bible, because if you don't even know what Badashat means, then you don't even know how to read your Bible. Persons get perplexed when I say that. Well, how dare you? I'm not saying you can't get some basics, this and that, but if you don't know what the first word of the Bible is, nor what the first scroll is called, you're going to have a tough time having the biblical conversation. That's right. They don't want us to put it together or to be whole, because to be whole is to be holy. A lot of you don't know. If you're going to talk about being holy, you got to put a W before the H. That's why the most important commandment, even the Messiah said this, Deuteronomy 6:4, Hear, O Yechad, right? Shema Yechad, Hear, O Israel, Yahweh Elohim Alav. Yahweh Elohim is one. That means he's whole. Perfection is wholeness, not being frayed. If you do something one day and then you see something different the next day, you're not whole. Yeah, or put it like this. If you say you believe in the Most High today, and then you don't believe him the next day, but then you believe him the day after that, you're not whole. If you say that you want to pray over your food, but then you're eating stuff that's not real food, then guess what? It's not whole. I'm not saying you shouldn't pray. I'm just telling you, if you have a heaping bowl of sugar and the Most High says eat real food, but you decide to eat food that's not real, you're tempting the Most High. No matter how holy you might declare yourself to be. Ask me how I know. Right? Because I've done the same thing before myself. Sometimes still do. That's why repentance is mandatory, and we can't pretend that we don't ever fall short.
Oh, what a cute little goldfish. All you did was a tail.
Right? We got to be honest. We got to be real. holy, spiritually, physically, emotionally, psychologically. By the way, here's another one that they taught you. All these things talking about psychology and the psychology of this and the psychology of that. Do you not know that the word psyche or psyche, P-S-Y-C-H-E in the Greek, psyche, right? Psyche literally means soul. This is when you got to stop listening to people, because then the first thing that somebody will do is, well, words change all the time. They're not supposed to. That's how you lose stuff. That's why some of you think it's a firmament when the firmament is the remnant of a Greek spirit. You're not supposed to be worried about the firmament. You're supposed to know about the quiet, but you don't know the difference. Once again, you've read the Bible, but you don't even know what's been changed, what's been introduced, what culture happened, when did they start using this word, right? So P-S-Y-C-H-E is pronounced psyche, and psyche is actually psyche or psychology. Psychology means to study it. So psyche or psyche means soul. Psychology means the study or the logic of the soul, and a psychologist is supposed to be proficient at the study or the logic of the soul. So when you go to a psychologist, you don't even think about your soul. But why would I want a psychologist to deal with me if they're not intimate with the soul themselves, right? So that's why a lot of your psychologists get you jacked up and get you messed up. You said we do independent study, autodidact. Is it autodidact or autodidact? I don't remember. But yeah, that's right. Right? Well, we don't recognize it. We don't take time out. We don't even think. The Bible says, "Study to show thyself approved." Take those first few words. Study to show thyself. But watch this. If you study, that means you're a student. And by the way, if you're a student, then that means you have to have a what? Uh-oh. Whether you're talking about Holy Spirit, or whether you're talking about who Holy Spirit's put in place, whether you're talking about chain of command, you are a student, right? I dabble in Kung Fu. But as a student, right? Then guess who I have to have? I have to have a teacher. I have a shifu. I have a master, right?
Yeah, you can mix it up.
If you're in school, if you're in, what do they call it? If you go to school in Japan and you have a senpai. Senpai is an older student that everybody looks up to, and somebody, who you call them senpai, they're the person that everybody's learning from. Even on every level, you got to have. But we don't like that person say, I don't need to learn from anybody. I put my, yeah, sure, okay. But you learn language from somebody. Guess what language also means? Guess what tongue also means? Tongue means nation. Did you know that? Right? Every time that you teach somebody something, or teach somebody how to speak something, or every time you learn how to speak something, you're learning a nation. So you got to figure out what nation you speak. When you speak a different language, when you speak a different dialect, you speak a different nation or a different part of the nation. You said the psychiatrist told you that? To engage the mind, to engage the soul, spirit, and body. Yeah, that's what it is. Psyche literally means soul. So you have to be careful. Now watch this, believe in the word of the world. If you have somebody who's agnostic or definitely somebody who's atheist, the atheist is going to do their best to tell you, oh, there's no such thing as a soul. So they're going to change the definition of psychology. Right? So the atheist changes the word. You see, we have to be careful about the world, or we have to be careful about persons who don't want to be obedient to what words are, proper etymology. Right? Right? So in the world, they say, remember, I told you the world has made it to your pulpits. You're going to see it. Some of you are 30 minutes removed. Some of you are an hour, 30 minutes, 2 hour, 30 minutes, wherever you are in the world. I don't know. But some of you might have already been to your churches. If you go to church anymore, you're going to turn and flip through online or on television or whatever, TBN. But I'm here to tell you, you need to realize that Christianity is a place where iron is mixed with clay. That means that they take things that are biblical, but then they're going to appropriate them. Now, if you don't know what appropriate or appropriate, same word. Don't let them fool you. If something is appropriate, it means it has been appropriated. So if you are inappropriate, you keep it the way it's supposed to be. This is what appropriate means. Or appropriate, the same word. Appropriate means that one must take it without permission. They must break it apart, right? Usually cataloging it so that they then can reverse engineer. All this is in the definition, so that they can reverse engineer it. And then once they reverse engineer, they add something to it, just one little small thing to say that they built it. And then when they do so, they usually will present it as theirs and tell everybody to follow it. And they usually will do so for profit. All of that is in the word appropriate. So those of us that are not doing that, or going back to the origin of things, or holding the persons accountable for what they did, we are considered to be inappropriate. Because we haven't changed culture. We stand for the same stuff. We're okay with being who we are. Right? Before there was Christianity, what we say is the so-called Bible. Before there was such thing as Christianity, the Bible existed. So why would I look for it for the change version when it was here the whole time? I'm going to be inappropriate. Inappropriate is not a negative thing. Inappropriate is positive. Now I know what we've been taught, right? We've been taught, that if somebody's out of pocket, no, if somebody's out of pocket. If your child is not listening, if your child turns their back on you while you're talking to them, and you say, "Don't do that to me," right? That child is not inappropriate. That child is disobedient. There's a different word, but you were told inappropriate because there are certain children, or certain people, or certain persons who in society who are never supposed to be able to have the authority to speak against anybody. So if they do anything like that, they are considered to be inappropriate because society says, "Hey, I am in charge. This type of person is in charge." But if they do that to their parents, it's disobedience. See, you were lied to, even in the words that you use. So you're thinking that. So you grew up thinking inappropriate. This is inappropriate. This is inappropriate. This is inappropriate. So you're afraid to move. You're afraid to do what the Most High says do. You're afraid to move. You're afraid to do what the Most High says do. You're afraid to be what Yah says. You're afraid that somebody will call you. You're afraid that somebody will say, "Well, you know what? We're just gonna disconnect from you." I've had persons talk to me as a former Jehovah's Witness. It always hits when I talk to Jehovah's Witnesses, and they'll tell me how they're about to be kicked out. They're about to be cut off. And I'm like, yeah. If you start living the truth, you're gonna get cut off. Yahashua told us in Luke chapter 12, verse 51. He said, "Do you think that I came here that there might be peace?" See, this is the truth. This is the truth. The way, the truth, and the life speaking. He said, "Do you think that I came?" He said, "Did you get this? Did you get caught up?" How you doing, Brother Craig? Right? He said, "Did you get caught up in the untruth? Did you believe what they taught you, which is that I came that everybody would have shalom, that everybody would have peace?" He said, "I didn't come that everybody would have peace." He said, "I came, right, that there would be division." He said, "I didn't come that everybody would agree. I came that there would be division." He said, he said, "Two will be in one house against three, and three will be in one house against two." He said, "Mother will be against daughter, and son will be against father. Mother-in-law against daughter-in-law, son-in-law against father-in-law." Now, this is not always guaranteed. He was just trying to give you a sense of like, hey, if you really are going to walk this walk, there's a lot of persons that say that they know me, but don't really care about me. They just use me as an excuse to do what they're going to do anyways. But if you actually follow me and submit to the word, he said there's going to be a whole bunch of persons that you're going to have issues with. Now, it doesn't mean, praise God, that there's not seasons. So prayerfully, it'll just be a season, right? Prayerfully, we don't have to see, husbands and wives break apart. And by the way, he didn't mention husbands and wives in there, so it's not an excuse. But but hopefully we don't have to see that. Hopefully we don't have to see mothers and daughters never talk, and sons and fathers never talk, and mother-in-laws never talk to their daughter. Hopefully, right? But if we're going to be in the truth, you got to realize that the truth is the truth, no matter what. And either you're going to live for the truth, or you're going to die against it. Or you'll die for the truth so that you might eternally live for it. But you got to realize there's separation. That's part of holiness. That's right, separating the wheat from the tare. That's what holiness is. Holiness, part of being holy, if you like the part of the definition of holy, which is to be set apart, and that also means it's exclusivity in your holiness. That means there's certain things that are not inclusive. That means that there's certain doors that are open for you that are not open to others. There are certain doors that are closed for you that are closed for you that are open to others, because they can walk in that. Remember, we just talked about earlier in those two places in Exodus 34 and Exodus 23, as well as Deuteronomy chapter 14, verse 21, I believe. And we went to these different places and we talked about the way we should eat and all that. And in Deuteronomy 14:21, it says that if you get some of this stuff that's died to itself or that's unclean, right? It says that if you get some of this stuff that's died to itself and that's unclean, that it has to actually be made, or that you should not eat it. Matter of fact, you can give it to a stranger because they're foreign to our ways. So if they're still eating stuff and you find that the church have something you're not supposed to have, hey, you can give it to somebody else who doesn't believe what you believe. But for us, it's separate, right? There's exclusivity. There's ways that we do things that others do not, will not, and we shouldn't. We shouldn't be upset or frustrated about it. We shouldn't. I know we get anxious about it. I know we're like, man, but my family's not going. I know you're dealing with the truth. And here's how it goes. It doesn't say that I'll work out Koba's salvation. It doesn't say I get to work out Dwayne's salvation. It doesn't say I get to work out Alma's salvation. And that's my wife. I'm going to help Alma as much as I can. But that's my wife, Elder Alma. I'm going to help her as much as I can. But it doesn't say I work out her salvation. It doesn't say that I work out Solomon's salvation. That's my son. Love him. It doesn't say I work out Sherry's salvation. It doesn't say I get to work out Deborah's salvation, Deborah's salvation, Barbara's salvation, right? It doesn't get I don't get to work out Elder Anai's salvation, or Elder Tamer's salvation, or Minister Rogers' salvation. I don't get to work out anybody else's. They have to work it out for themselves. I'm here to help. We're here to help each other. And if I give them wrong information, then I'm messing up and working out my own salvation. That's on me, more so than it is them. Right? But I'm not working out somebody else's. I have to work out my own. See, we were lied to. That's why you don't think about, you were told to think about all these different things, but never think about your works. And most persons that are now coming to the truth because they're saying, well, I got this faith, but it doesn't seem to be working. Or I have this faith, but I don't even know how to work it. But if you're in a place where they never tell you how to work it, then of course you can have all the faith in the world. In the world. You can have all the faith in money. But if nobody tells you how to work with what you got, doesn't mean that you'll get what you need. That's how a lot of persons live paycheck to paycheck. You know, some persons get upset and they try to tell this lie where, you know, all the persons that are on, what do you call it? All the persons that are on food stamps, they all go on vacation all the time. That's not true at all. But there are some persons who are on food stamps with a little bit of money that they have, they know how to save it, and so they go to certain things. And some of y'all who are middle class are so busy trying to keep up with the Joneses, trying to get stuff to where you got to pay so much money just to take care of your ground and stuff. And you're not making sure you're in a position to make sure you save up for what you want. Yeah, that you get out there and you're constantly trying to chase somebody else, so you don't have anything. They want to tell a lie talking about people on food stamps so that you can feel better about the fact that you didn't make sure that you kept your money the way it was supposed to, or that you saved it, or that you invested it. You got more money to invest than the poor folk do, and the poor folks should be investing too. But I'm just saying, you got more money to invest, never invest. Get mad at somebody in cryptocurrency and they're talking about all cryptocurrency is false. Do your research and figure out what to invest in. And when you make your money too, then praise Yah for you being obedient and making sure that you know how to work what's there. You have faith that you're supposed to have, but you don't have any works to back up what you're supposed to have. That's not on anybody else but you. Or the person that didn't teach you. See, even as we say here, we're even part of this, the Holy Days thing that we did, the Holy Day series before this Feast of Tabernacles series. If you recall, we talked about how you got a faith without budget. You had a faith without budget. Right, like faith without works has no life. Faith without budget has no life. Do you know how to budget not only your time, your talent, your effort, your energy, but yes, do you know how to budget the money that comes in? Do you have a mindset that says, I'm going to budget time, talent, effort, energy. I'm going to find out how by law, legal means, whatever it takes, lawfully, whatever it takes to do. But hey, I know Passover's coming up. When I come back, before I come back, you should start seeing in different places a list of dates for next year. You'll know where Passover is, Feast of Unleavened Bread is. You'll know where Feast of, what we call Pentecost, right? You're gonna know what the Feast of Trumpets. You're gonna know the Day of Atonement. You're gonna know Feast of Tabernacles. And next year we're gonna even add on a couple more, and we'll have a couple gatherings and stuff too. It's gonna be laid out like we did this. Matter of fact, this year we laid it all out. There were a couple changes on places, but if you were with us in 2023, then basically October, November, you knew what was coming up in 2024. Already laid out, and if you were with us definitely this year, not only did you know where, what was coming up, you knew where it was going to be, right? By basically January at the most. And Feast of Tabernacles, we were having meetings for Feast of Tabernacles in the end of January, early February. Telling persons, hey, be ready, do this, blah, blah. If you need help, let us know. Right? If you don't know how to get off work, if you don't know how to make sure that you have this stuff together, if you don't know how to make sure that they know your religious rights, if you need me to write a letter, boom, boom. I'm not trying to get on anybody specific. I'm just saying at some point it gets to a place where faith without works, faith without budgeting, learning how to budget time, learning how to budget thought process, et cetera, et cetera. We got to put ourselves in order. So thank you, Marcus. We appreciate you. Right? We're on every day, 8 a.m. New York time. We're just about every day, 8 a.m. New York time, except Tuesdays and Wednesdays. I'm actually coming up after this Tuesday. I'll probably do Tuesday in the rising. I'll do Monday in the evening for sure. Tuesday in the rising. After that, I'm actually gonna take a week off. It's like my vacation. I'm gonna try to take 2 weeks off. Depends, And even if I don't take 2 full weeks off, if you see me on the live, the only thing I'll be doing is a live session probably after that. Except for persons who have been asking me certain questions that I haven't been able to get to because we've been so busy during this holiday season. Because basically once the middle of September hit, we basically did 4 hours of power in the middle of September. September 22nd was Feast of Trumpets. October 1st was, and by the way, so September, whatever that was, 15th, 16th, somewhere in there, whatever, or maybe 7th, I don't know, whatever the second Saturday or something like that of September was, we did the 4 hours of power. I was in Baltimore. Then we came down, picked up family and stuff, went over to Houston for September 22nd. That was the Feast of Trumpets. Then we came back over to Georgia, and we're in Marietta. That was October 1st for the Day of Atonement. And then we came over here October 6th to the 13th to near Cartersville, Georgia. That was the Feast of... and that's the Feast of Tabernacles we're doing now. So if you've been trying to get a hold of me during this time, I'm not always the best, easiest to get a hold of anyways. That's why we have other persons on staff to help or to direct you, me to you if it's like an emergency. But yeah, so I apologize. But we've been getting better and stuff like that. But yeah, before I come back, you guys should see in certain places, you'll be able to see those dates already, and I'll start putting those dates out early and start saying, hey, look at them. I'll be putting them on a shout out. I'll start saying some of them. So, you'll have those dates and places in mind. If you can come join, man, please do. Please do. How you doing, DKI? Thanks for being part of the community. But yeah, we appreciate you, so. But yeah, so we got to be in this place. Yeah, be an ATM, right? And, yeah, be the producer, not the consumer, right? The stop program. Check out Angelic Discipline. I know Brother Terrence, you say that I called you that because that's what the name that pops up on social media. But Angelic Discipline on here. Check him out and check out his stuff or whatever. And see when he talks about stop, STOP, and what it stands for, right? I haven't said it out loud in a long time. Sorry, Brother Terrence. Sustenance, textiles. I'm about to say it wrong. Sustenance, textiles. Occupancy? I don't know. I don't remember the P. Can you put it in the chat for me? I'll say it out loud. Right? And if you can find him on TikTok or on YouTube, feel free to look at that stuff as well. Yeah. Sustenance, textiles, occupation. The P is messing with me. I don't know why. Purpose. Okay. Now I should know that because vision, purpose, value. Right. Okay. Sorry about that. Purpose. Yeah, okay, I finally got it. All right, sustenance, textiles, occupation, purpose. Yeah, but yeah, so we have a lot of great things. We're supposed to come together as a nation. That's also part of this thing. We have to stop listening to the world trying to tell you that you belong to all these nations. We are a nation. That's the goal, right? We are a nation, right? We're solid as a nation. Israel is supposed to be a compact nation. Psalm 122, right? That means a nation that's built to come together. If we're not coming together, we're not the way that we're built. We're built different. And I know it's really hard too, because a lot of journeys for persons started through us not being able to be with each other and being afraid of it, because a lot of our journeys and even getting a lot of this information really starts in 2020, recently for many, where they actually, when platforms like TikTok blew up. But our goal is to become a nation built together. All right, but I don't really have much outside of what we talked about today. So I thank you. I honor your time. I appreciate you. I'm gonna go ahead and take my leave for today. And I know there's persons physically that are here or virtually, etc., that wanted to do different things. Today is I'm basically just going to be making sure I slowly kind of start packing things up, making sure we're checked out of a couple spots that we're supposed to be checked out of, the extra spots we had for the extra traffic. So that's kind of what I'm on and into. And going to work out for today. I'll give a couple of gifts out that we had. Thank you for the blessing for Brother Jacob. Hopefully you guys make it safe to whatever destination is next. I don't know if you're headed back to Arkansas or if you guys are headed to Texas or whatever, but we hope you're safe. Those who are there, we're praying for safe travel for Sister Shirley and you guys getting to where you're going. We're praying for safe travel for Brother Richard and you guys going back down to Florida. So yeah, we're thankful. We honor you. We appreciate you. It's been a pleasure to meet a lot of you in person who I haven't met before, or those who we actually see now, so on somewhat a regular basis to see you guys again. Hopefully, I know for many there's different reasons why some didn't make it, or mix-ups or different things, or just things happen. But prayerfully, this is something that really you can be able to attend. Somebody suggested another spot, which I'm gonna pray about sincerely. I will tell you guys. I don't know if this is the platform, or at least this is the time for it, because you never know who's watching and stuff like that. But we did deal with a little bit of craziness, but we were trying to get down to where the baptism was. So it does make my mind think maybe we'll look at another spot. But this spot has been something where we've been growing and growing and getting more and more, spots where a lot of the area belongs to us, and this area in particular has been like a blessing. So we might look at the possibility of either coming back and getting a particular place again, a specific place, to where we don't have to worry about that, and we can do everything and be a little more off to ourselves, even though we pretty much are to ourselves. But maybe in this location, or maybe we'll look at another spot. Somebody has suggested something up north on the East Coast. Only thing is that it's if people think it gets cold down here, it gets cold up there, and we gotta have baptism and all that in the river and stuff. So we gotta keep some of that stuff in mind. But just y'all keep us in prayer. We're also looking at so just to kind of give you a heads up too. I know I'm talking at this point. We're finished. We're gonna do a shout out in a second. I apologize, but just to kind of let you guys. And by the way, if anybody took any pictures of baptism or anything yesterday, we'd love to be able to have them so we can put them together. We put different versions of our baptism and stuff together. Some for the families, some that we could put out, just for shout outs, and some that we put out in public, that we can have. That's friendly, or well, not friendly, but is able to be shown, without being embarrassing in any kind of way or anything like that to those who weren't there, so they can see what we're doing every year. So if you were on Zoom yesterday and you saw some stuff, you took some screenshots, if you got some recordings of it, I would love, if you can, if you don't mind, maybe you getting those to us so we can make sure that we look at those. That being said, though, I really appreciate you guys. Thankful for what Yahweh is doing. It's marvelous in our eyes. We are thankful and grateful for all the great stuff that's been going on, and we're excited. Children are going to have their movie night tonight. For those that are here, I'll try to see if you want. They were watching Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It took us forever in a day. We had to redo the whole setup here, so it took us forever in a day. And it took like 3 or 4 of us to finally figure out how all the different things we had, because they have this stuff down technology to where if they think we're selling stuff to somebody or showing it on big screens, which we're basically doing a movie screen, they keep up with technology and they make sure that we can't. So we had to come up with some creative ways to finally let them see the movie. But we may or may not try to put that on Clapper. But I don't really have it. There'll be no extra word or anything given. I'm still working on trying to get you guys that link, by the way, for Blind Faith, since we couldn't do it virtually. So we'll try to get that together for you all. And I thank you. We may try to do something where we do some testimonies, but we might have to just do that, virtually. We were going to try to see if everybody can just talk about, but we might just do that on Zoom or something one night so everybody can feel comfortable talking about what they got virtually and physically from the experience. And that way even the babies can be safe, to not have to have their stuff out there as well. So we're working on that as well. But thank you all again. I really, 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 really greatly appreciate your presence and your walk. And thank you for joining us. As always, we give our honor and praise to the Most High. We give our praise and honor to him for my wife, the Honorable Alma, who lives a life that's able to be honored. To my ministerial staff, moderators, SOC, Lottie Dye, and everybody, those who do work in front of the scenes, behind the scenes, whatever the case might be. Thank you so much. Those who know how the shout out works, you got to join us on TikTok for the shout out. But if you'd like to, you can look at the description for information. Join us on Kofi_43. Not the other two, but Kofi_43. And you should be able to find us there. By the way, also too, there, can I just put this out from time to time? When you grow on social media, you have to do weird stuff like this from time to time. There are persons who pretend to be, persons such as myself, to see if they can get money, from Cash App or different things like that from you guys, or different Venmo stuff, whatever, all the different things out there. So just to make it clear, if you're looking for us, right? If you are looking for us on TikTok, on YouTube, hashtag find Kofi. If you're looking for us on TikTok, there's 3 channels that we have that are real. Everything else, well, there's 4 technically, but there's only 3 that I'm really using. The 4th one I was using because they were trying to take down the 3rd one at one point. They took down the 1st one, and the 2nd one they tried to take down the 3rd one, but they couldn't. So there's Kofi_Ofori, KOFI_OFORI, right? Right. That's my name, right? Once again, KOFI_OFORI. Then there's Kofi_42. My name again, but with the number 2. KOFI_OFORI 2. Then if you're looking for the 3rd channel, it is Kofi_43. Once again, my name. My name is, right, on, was that TikTok? My name is KOFI_OFORI and then the number 3. Okay? So if you're looking for us, look for those. You should be able to find those. I thank you all. I appreciate you. I hope you enjoyed the word, and prayerfully you'll enjoy a little bit of music during the shout out. Once again, we are praying for you. We're looking forward to great things happening in your life and the lives of others. And anything we can do to help you or be a blessing to you, we hope to do so. So we'll talk with you guys soon. Yeah. So I thank you again. We honor you. Hopefully you enjoy the rest of your day. Shabbat Shalom to you. If we are able to do a watch party, it'll probably be on Clapper. We'll put it on the Google Calendar invite for you all. And that's all that I have for today. So have a great day. And remember, as always, beloved, that you are loved. You're necessary. You're majestic. You're fearfully and wonderfully made. And you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shabbat Shalom. Love you all. You all take care. Have a great day. Peace.
There's a praise.